Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my co-host Tom. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hello, friends. It's a joy to be with you again.
Yeah, it's
I'm
great.
sorry that
It's
I
great to
missed
have
the
you.
Nova show. It looked exciting and terribly, terribly depressing.
When I say it was the worst show they've ever done to date, keep in mind that that's including the Adepticon show where they locked us in a boiling room for an hour and a half and forced us to watch like timeshare videos, basically. Okay. And this was worse because at least that one actually had content. This was the opposite of whatever that was.
They are working really hard to convince me to never come back to a major con again.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
like it's truly stunning.
now the bright part of this one, I'll say, okay, the only shining light of this
Of course.
is that the Nova preview happens in the 40K room, okay, which you know,
Okay.
Tom, okay,
Yeah.
you know that
Yeah.
room, even if you don't know, you know it,
Okay.
because the 40K room is where the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner happens.
Okay.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about,
Sure.
like where all the press are out there and like the president and the people are up on stage. Yeah, and it's like all the
Yep.
it's like all the big news organizations get together. It's in that room.
Yep.
Okay, that's where the 40K stuff happens,
Amazing.
as well as some like vendor stuff on the side. And that room is like huge. Okay,
So you're
like,
saying, hold on, let me beat you to the punch. So you're saying that it is the most worthless meeting that's ever been in that room, and that's saying something? Is that your
yeah,
punchline?
that was
Ah!
that was yeah, yes.
I knew you were going there.
Sure, but also the advantage is because of the sheer size. Like it's not anywhere near full from the preview, right? Like a bunch of people are at the preview, but all the tables are still set up. Like they don't even break down all the tables because it's just too much, right?
Yeah.
So you can just grab. So Adam and I were just like way back, just hang out, and I could like actively
Mock what was
mock
happening.
it the whole time. Yes, like
Yeah.
pull an MST3K, little Crow and Tom Servo action as it's going on, without
See, next
interrupting other
time,
people.
next time you need to like set up a live stream from your phone, even though I know it's illegal, to like the back of your heads, right?
Oh, our
Pointed
phones were
towards
out the
the
whole time
stage.
this time because they had us playing the dumb trivia game, and you have to play it on your phone. So yeah, I mean, it's just like I assume no one streamed it because what would there be? What would be the point?
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
No, everybody's phone was out the whole time. There's nothing. There was no. They weren't like policing that like they have in the past. So
Wild, wild, wild.
yep. But anyways, enough about last week. It was terrible. There you go. Was there anything you saw in the Stormcast stuff that excited you, Tom?
I mean, I kind of like the Crow guy, or Crow them.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, what I'll say is this: I still like the sculpts. I like how they're leaning into animals associated with chapters. They did this initially beginning, so like Warrior Chamber was associated with lions,
Yeah.
and it like jumped around, right? And so now with this like Terminus Chamber or whatever it's called, I don't know, the almost dead chamber, whatever these guys are called.
Yeah.
Uh
Ruination.
Ruination. There we go. It's like the crow, right?
Yeah,
Uses
sure.
the symbol of death and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I appreciate that. Like I appreciate that like unified aesthetic.
Sure.
And so that's interesting to me. Um
Hey,
it,
congratulations, Stuart Brown. Way to go, buddy.
it's fine.
Way to go winning one of those trivias. That's awesome. I mean, like, I'm not upset about people winning free stuff. That's cool. I mean, they could also just like raffle that off to people. Like, there's other ways they could do it that doesn't involve
Wouldn't
that, but
wouldn't that
whatever.
be neat?
Sure. Absolutely. Cygnus says I'm holding out for the chamber with a swan mascot. I mean, there's nothing meaner than swans. Absolutely. Also, Tom,
Well,
do
that's
not hit your
geese.
mic. Stop hitting your mic.
Geese are the worst.
Okay. Uh, a swan will mess up some gooses, dude. That's you get swans when you don't want geese, because one swan will keep an entire flock of geese away. They do not mess with swans. Like Look, all I'm saying is when Jess got a black eye, it wasn't from fighting Dean. It was because he got punched in the face by a swan. Okay, so there you go. All right.
Sure.
So at any rate, tonight we're going to talk about hobby. You know, we've done a lot of shows. We've been hitting some negativity recently, but tonight we're going to talk about fun hobby stuff. We're going to talk about encouragement, tips, tricks. We're going to answer some hobby questions, all those kind of things to help you get your force painted. I imagine many of you out there, like me, are working on a new force. It's AOS 4. It's time. It's exciting, right? You start a new army, and so we're gonna talk about some hobby tips, tricks, advice, all that fun stuff. So throughout this, as we get into the hobby section, I want people to be dropping their questions in there. We'll be answering them, especially as we'll talk about different stuff. Hit us with your questions as we're going there. Don't forget that we've got the super chatty thing enabled if you want to. If that strikes your fancy, go nuts. But we'll answer all the questions. You don't have to do that. But if you want to, it's appreciated and cool. All right. So, Tom, shall we begin with the news?
Of course.
Of course we shall. Yes, buddy. It is a weird hand that looks like it's melting on a knife. Like it's that hand is very strange. Always. And it is got some drippy goo.
Who doesn't like the drippy goo?
Mm-hmm.
On hands,
like blood or something. And he's wearing a very tight cuff there. This guy. So yeah.
Do we think that this is corn?
I don't know. I don't know. He's got a little bracer thing. It looks like his arm on the other side of it, basically. He's gripping it for all it's worth because his skin is all squidged out on it.
It's a reverse grip, as far as highlighting, right?
Yeah.
As Bruno mentioned, it's very Hobgrot-esque, right?
But the hands look very human.
Human, yes. Yes, that is very much a flesh tone brown that they've chosen there, where that could either be a red or a green for the goo with the shading.
I suppose it'd have to be a very dark green because you still can see the tones of gray and white, and so if it's a yellow green, it would not look that color. It would look much brighter.
Correct. So that would have to be like a dark green. So
yes,
maybe. I think it's supposed to be blood. But if that's the case, it makes me wonder, what the front of on the left side of the picture, what does the front strand of that blood, what is it attached to? If that's a reverse grip, right? There's actually some physics here that I'm really curious about what's going on.
I assume he's actually holding the blade somehow is what's happening here, but because it looks like it's still edge highlighted on the other side of his hand. So I assume he's actually gripping the blade, which would be weird with your bare hand. That was a very common fighting style. You did often grab the blade. That's a lot. Why mailed gauntlets are often so you can grab the blade and punch through enemy armor. Anyways, but yeah, I don't know. I literally have no idea. So one of their games with humans in it. I'm gonna answer a question here, Mr. Morden. Yeah, man, that's a perfectly fine list. The Ogroids are probably not doing as much as they could be in that list. They're going to be hard to get in there. Same with I assume generic, I don't know which Chaos hero you mean, if you mean just one of the bonus heroes. Your Bellicor 6 Furies, the Varangard, the Chaos Sorcerer, the 20 Warriors. That's all fine and good and all holds a good place.
The 20 Warriors may be too many.
I assume they're Mark of Nurgle. It's a pretty great anvil. On any of the center hold missions, it's a really powerful tool. So, when you're forced to spread wide, it's less good. But anyways, the 3 Ogroids are going to be hard pressed to actually get their damage in, and I probably wouldn't take the hero. But that's not a huge number of points. That's probably 370 points or something flex you've got there. So the core of your list is strong. You might play around with that edge.
20% of your army.
Yeah, which is generally the flex you have where it doesn't matter too much. So
So if you already have those models, that's probably fun.
Yes. Rob Hoff, thank you for your feedback on my Capital Palette entry. Your feedback was really specific and actionable. That's what I aim for. Could you give any tips on getting a gold in the Apprentice division? like paint a good model, I guess is what I would say. Like, you know, do the appropriate amount of like do something like do something that's interesting in some way, but you know, paint to a high standard. So that means clean,
Vince,
credible.
did you just tell him to get good?
Yeah, basically. I don't know what to tell. I mean, like, it's hard to answer. There's lots of ways to get gold, right? Like, if you do something that's impressive, that's quality, that's credible, that's, you know, like, that's very clean, all of those things are valuable. But it's not like you, like, in the apprentice division, we're fairly forgiving. We're looking for stuff that's, you know, any of those things to a high level, right? In masters, you have to do everything to a high level. Like, you can't miss, right? In apprentice, you can miss. You just gotta, like, you gotta take something. You gotta take something up. Right.
Right.
So,
Rob, he just said, "Don't be trash." That's what he said.
I did not say that.
So what you need to do is find something with nice poppy colors that you like and highlight it all the way up. It'll be great.
That's
my advice.
Myself and the other judge. I assure you are not motivated by the color of the thing alone. You could do it in any color.
Ignore him. No, you need to do it in like a teal or a pink or a purple.
One of the gold winners, Tom, it's really funny you say that, because like of the 2 gold winners in single figure, one was like super poppy with a contrast like orange blue type of scheme, like just colorful as and just really nicely done. The one who ended up winning best in division. The other in that same category, okay, was a tank that was like basically one color and brown. Like there was no colors on it, as a matter of fact. It was white with brown. But it was so beautifully, cleanly, well executed. I was here for it. Like, it was great. So again, that's why I'm saying there's no like one road, right? They were completely different models. They couldn't be more different, but yeah, they were both golds. Thank you, Anthony. You're a hero. That's right. Make Tom come to NashCon. I agree. All right. We're going to have to dedicate a whole show to that, funding Tom's trip to NashCon or something. All right. Let's keep going, Tom. What's next in the news?
Yeah, news. Let's talk about the Skaven pre-order this week. A bunch of new Skaven models, even though that we don't really have a lot of new units. We have a couple, you know, a couple repackaged Underworld, you know, it's fine.
We'll talk about it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Some new Skaven pre-orders this weekend. I'm partial to the new weapon teams.
Coming in packs of 3 now, which is partially sad because that means Skaven are one of the few armies where it was actually quality to build a list because you didn't have to end like 100 points away sometimes with no options. Nope, we're going to be back to that again for sure, because if you're buying those things in 3s, they ain't going to be 60 points anymore. I can say that for sure. You know, like that just seems obvious. Real quick here, Friendman. Yeah, you got lots of options in Tzeentch. Double Chicken is good, like as a base. Flamers are fun. Screamers are good. Prospectors. A heavy Zangor army can work if you like all the bird people, like Zangor and on disc. The archer dudes are really, really good. So are the Zangor flocks, just bases of the like hordes of 20 of those lunatics will kill through stuff. So like Tzeentch is actually pretty versatile. The bunch of horrors is a perfectly fine choice. Like, it's an interesting army. Don't take one big chicken unless you're taking 2 big chickens. That's my advice.
That's just bad advice.
One of those big chickens being Kairos. Sorry, either take Kairos alone or take Kairos plus a regular chicken. I should say it like that.
Okay.
That's what I actually mean.
Because Caleb Walters disagrees winning Nova this year.
I understand. He only had Kairos. Yes.
Kairos, correct.
Yeah. You don't need the second big chicken. Yes. I only mean don't take the regular chicken on his own. He's sad. He's a sad boy on his own. That's what I was really saying. Okay, let's talk Skaven for a second here. Okay. Hey, no problem, Brenman. Happy to help. So I pulled, so just as an aside, obviously this goes on pre-order, so technically next week we could do the Skaven show, and I want to do the Skaven show, but I'm traveling next week, so I can't do the Skaven show next week. I'm not going to do it from a hotel by myself. Like, it's just not the way I want to do, you know, one of my favorite books. But also, as a note here and in the news, Tom, before we get into these Skaven details, what did you think of the note in the article that the books will not change much from the indexes? Yeah, that's the appropriate response. What are
Like
we doing here? What are we doing here?
GW, come over to me to camera number 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So here's the deal. If you want us to buy the thing, give us a reason to buy the thing.
That's right.
Okay. Burying codes in books to unlock points is nonsensical. They're going to be up for free on every notepad and Word document everywhere,
Yep.
right? You can't lock that down. And so us buying books just to unlock points is silly talk. Okay? The consequence of what you've done, the incentive structure that you've just set up is no one's going to buy your books. And if you say, "Oh, well, we'll just lock the app so that they can't use the app." Guess what? No one's going to use your app.
Right,
Is that what
correct.
you want? Is that what
Yeah,
you want?
like
Because
the internet exists. Okay, these
that
things
is the
go up
incentive
free.
structure. That's the incentive structure you've set up, GW. So, some free advice from me to you. Don't be trash. Like, just do it right.
Yeah, give us something in
Right?
the book that's worth buying. And like some
Absolutely. We will give you money if you give us more content in the book. But you've already given us the entire book for free in PDF,
right. And like, you know,
which is
look,
great. We
sure.
love. But maybe give some more content in the book itself that we can pay you for. That would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Agreed. Completely agreed. And like, you know, look, if you're buying it solely for the like story and the art and stuff like that, and that's what inspires you, cool beans. I have no problem with that. Like all that stuff is often legitimately amazing and great in these books. And like they and I do want to give a shout out to all the hardworking people in the books division who like write these fun stories, and the map makers and artists who do all this incredible work, like usually under pretty tight deadlines. So like those people deserve nothing but credit for working very hard and probably not being compensated enough, by the by, for that
Right.
incredible work. But like rules wise, just respitting out the index with like some minor changes is very sad. That's no good. Now, with these first two, there's going to be enough stuff in there, right? That's new solely because of the new units, right? That's the
Sure.
trick here.
Sure.
Like with Skaven, you've got, I mean, just in this picture alone, you can see like, you know, 3-4 new things, right? That weren't in the original one. Because obviously you're going to the groups of weapon teams and the new Warp Volt Scourger guys or whatever, and the Brood Terror thing that's there hiding in the background behind Vizek and Vizek himself, and right, and like, okay, cool, fine, great. So there's like some new units, right? And maybe that's like a reason enough to to get both of these books, because you've got new units. So there's actually like some new rules in there. But like, my goodness gracious, we will tackle it. I'll tackle it at the end, Mr. Morton, because I'm going to talk about getting to like best army stuff. So I will get there. Um, but like, my goodness, the same anemic spell lores, the same that kind of stuff. Like, you know, as we saw from the little thing. Stop hitting your mic. That is crazy, right? Um,
Yeah.
it's just no good. It's just no good. Like, give us a real reason to buy the book. I agree, Tom.
Yeah. And like with that, I think that this is even going to backfire even more because of the idea of this gamer edition,
Yeah, of course.
which is like cards in a paperback or a softback book for more money. Like I
For
just
like
don't
80
get it.
bucks or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Which is technically more than the cards alone in the hardback.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Like it's not like I just don't understand. Like I don't like I understand they're trying to innovate the product and I get that. Like and I want to honor that. But that innovation just seems off.
Well, I mean, here's the real sad part about it, Tom. What's going to happen? Okay. So, like, let's assume that these first books come out and people are just like roundly uninterested or whatever. Like the Skaven and Stormcast
Sure.
probably do fine again because of new units, right?
Yep.
But let's say the S2D book, which we know is next, is from the roadmap,
Yep.
is like basically just the index again with like 2 units with their rules changed, right? Let's say that's what
Yep.
happens.
Yep.
Okay. If that happens, who's buying that? Why would you buy that? Right? Like that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. So like if they get by the time they get the messaging, right, that it's such a terrible idea,
Yep.
they're already going to be cranked through like half the books. Okay.
Yeah, I don't
So the pivot is going to
understand.
be way too late. And what'll end up happening is they'll be like, "Oh crap, we've got to do something in the back half of these books." So you'll get like 8 to 10 armies on the back half of the edition that just like have a bunch of new stuff for no reason. And all of a sudden you're like, "What the hell? I got one of the anemic early books. That sucks." Right? So they've just completely put themselves in a corner here.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's really curious. I don't understand it, and I don't understand the motivation as to what's going on here.
Yeah. Autumn, I agree. Actually, I would be happy for like more sub factions, but especially for the paint scheme things, right? Like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I love those. You know, you just got a big page that's just like, here's like a bunch of different paint schemes for the different clans, right, and stuff like that. Yeah, that's awesome. It's great. Anyways, let's talk about some specifics here, Tom, from the Skaven book that we saw from some of the previews. It's like a 2-week pre-order, right? So they go on pre-order this weekend, and then they come out the 21st or whatever, I think is what they said in the article. Mr. Morden. So, okay. So first off, the man, the myth, the legend, the big greater demon who caused all the uproar. Tom, did you catch the uproar around Vizek Scour and his prayer? Okay, Tom. No. Well, I have his prayer on screen, and it's the Death Frenzy. It's got a casting value of 8, or a chanting value of 8. Sorry, it is a prayer.
Sure.
Declare, pick a visible enemy unit within 13 inches of this unit, or a visible friendly Skaven infantry unit within 13 inches of this unit. Not wholly within, so that's cool. Then make a chanting roll of d6. Blah, blah. It's an 8, as I said, to chant successfully. If the target's an enemy, subtract 1 from the attack's characteristic of their melee weapons. If it's a friendly unit, it can use 2 fight abilities this turn. After the first is used, however, the target has strike last. If the chanting roll is 12 plus, you can pick 2 targets instead of 1. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So that's all fine, right? What I've described to you thus far, Tom, sounds like a normal thing. We know he's a priest too as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Like, neat. Okay, cool prayer. Then may I guide your eyes, Tom, skyward to the top of this block where it says any hero phase.
Sure. It can be used both in your hero phase, and it can be used as a magical intervention, right?
No.
Right? No. That's what that means.
That is not what that means. What that means is that he can just chant in the enemy hero phase without using magical intervention. Because it says any hero phase.
Are we sure that that's what was intended?
I am telling you how the game functions. I can't speak to what's in anyone's head. But that is how the game functions. The way abilities work now, there is no dedicated phase lock or anything like that to these things. They just work when they work. It's the same way there is no defined what movement means in the game. Okay? It's just you use an ability, the ability says move. Everything's an ability. You can use the ability when the ability says you can use it. Period. Green Mountain models, I believe they confirmed it's 130 mil round. So yes, this dude can just chant. Now remember, he could pray again. He could magical intervention to pray again, to chant again in the enemy phase if he wanted to do it a second time. Okay, because he is a priest too. And he certainly can't like pop this off without some series of events happening where he's getting at least +2 on a single roll, right? But nonetheless, hell of a priest. Hell of a priest here for Vizik.
I don't even know what to say. Bad design space. That's what I'm saying. Like, let's hope that this was an accident.
I guess we'll find out, huh? But as of right now, with this preview, yes, he can just sit there and pray. So he could theoretically pray a maximum of 4 times in the cycle, right?
Yep.
In the turn.
Yes, he could.
So that's cool.
Yes, he could.
Cool stuff there. I grabbed this one because this is a notable change. So this is the Arch Warlock. They published his passive ability, which is Overseers of the Engine Covens. Yep. This is in the article from like today or whatever. So his passive ability is if a friendly scryer unit wholly within 13 inches of this unit uses the covering fire command, no command points are spent. Which is a shame, because that's a change. It used to be they don't take -1 to hit, which I liked better. I was willing to spend the command point for no -1 to hit.
No penalty. Yeah.
Yeah. But that being said, like, I don't know, I guess getting to covering fire for free is also pretty good. So, you know, that's fine. That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, when they said, like, at the beginning of this edition, they were like, you know, we're not going to have bonus command points being handed out anywhere. It's like, okay, that's fine. But if you keep publishing abilities that say you can do things without spending command points, then you aren't really locked to 4 command points. Those are bonus command points. The fact that they're like tied to one particular thing doesn't matter if it's a thing you were really wanting to do and would have absolutely allocated one of your points to. And in a scryer heavy list, you are covering fire every round, full stop, right? So, okay. So that's fine. Lot of Vicus says the priestliest of priests. Yes, exactly. Zanbin wanted to know why it's bad design. Because there's already a method for chanting in the enemy turn. It's called magical intervention, and it's a controlled space where you have to spend a command point and a resource to take these sort of off-turn actions, right? And generally when you're doing things for free in the enemy turn, outside of the constraints of spending some limited resource, things go bad. Because how they should have designed this edition, if they had guiding principles, was they should have said off-turn is for reactionary stuff. You're meant to be engaged, but your moves are all effectively reactionary, right? Like redeploy is effectively reactionary. Like you're trying to move to change how they moved, countercharge, covering fire, even unleash prayer, right, or spell or whatever, where you are then doing something to like protect a unit or damage an enemy unit off turn, right? But all of that stuff takes resources, so you have to then very carefully manage what your reactivity level is. When you have things that just act off turn without a cost, you get problems. See Dreadblade Harrows as a great, or not? Yeah, that's what they are. Whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. Dreadblade Harrows. Yeah, here's the deal. Here's why it's bad design. Because what it just did is trivialized all of the other cast values for this guy. This is what this could have read, right? Gain a D6 prayer points to use in your next hero phase.
Right.
Off turn.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Because what this means is this. Even if you achieve the prayer value, if you don't want this prayer, all you're going to do is throw the dice and be like, cool, I gained 5 prayer points. I'll wait. I'm like, let's say I'm at 8 now. I'm not going to trigger it. Great. I'm just going to wait. And so next time on your normal turn, or even if you now want to actually spend your magical intervention, even at -1, you can trigger a super heightened whatever version of any of the other normal prayers that you have access to. And so the irony is that it doesn't just affect this one ability. It affects all of the prayers that you have access to because it reduces their values. It reduces their higher tier unlocks. Let me say it this way. It minimizes the significance of those because it trivializes how quickly you can get to those things by praying off turn for free, for no actual cost.
Right, and if you actually do spend the thing, then you're just guaranteed to always be knocking your 12s out or whatever if you want. Like you can,
Yeah.
like, and the problem exactly, Zanben, I agree with Peppo, who said like points don't matter for something like this guy. He'll either be pointed as a yes or a no. The problem is when you put in these like really unusual game breaking abilities that are just like completely sideways and touch a third
It's hard to
rail,
point them.
it's hard to point them because like
Right.
either he's completely worth it because you can just like at almost any points value other than something completely insane,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Or he'll end up being or like he's insane. That's what it comes down to. Like you push him like 800 points and it's like, okay, well, he's never going in a list, obviously, unless his stats are
Right.
like Archeon. But if you but otherwise he just ends up being a drag where you're like, and then he gets swingy where he's so expensive and that becomes your core strat and it becomes just like a real drag on the army. So it's bad all over. Anyways, don't touch
creates
third
bad
rails.
incentives.
That's
exactly right. Yep.
I agree,
That's
Autumn.
exactly
I do think this is the Be'lakor problem. Yeah, even though I like Be'lakor's ability, but you're right. It is the Be'lakor problem. I think that's a great way
Or
to call
it's
it.
the not Usharon problem, right?
Sure,
Like you
where he's
can't
like
build
he becomes so essential to his list. Yeah, to his
you
faction.
can't build it like go show me an FEC list that's performed that hasn't used a Usharon. The reason
they
why
would all use Ush. All right, let's go back to
Yeah.
the Arch Warlock.
Yeah.
So this is clearly a
Yeah,
change. Stop giving away free command points, but whatever. The Neg one was a better ability. It's ironic. Here we are.
Yep.
All right. Then, Tom, they gave us the rules for the Warp Grinder. The Warp Grinder, Tom, this new thing. Okay? Which is like,
Yeah.
it was a thing, but now it's a bigger thing. It used to be a tiny
Cool.
thing. Now it's a bigger
I like
thing.
things.
Yeah, sure. And so like, yeah, Marathi I'm okay with, ironically, Peppo, because yes, she has that sort of a weird ability, but because she's like a god of the faction and you can price her at 700 points and make her do enough damage, that's okay. Like she fits in at the 700 point range. It's like actually fine. She's always kind of self-balanced on that.
Well, she creates a 1-0 decision point for you, but she's not a must include. I think that's different
what I'm saying.
than something. Yeah, like I think that's
because
different,
she's
though,
so
than
expensive. It's interesting. You can actually balance it. When models get into like the 700-800 point range, it's actually just such a huge percentage of 2K that
Right.
they can't be auto in most cases.
Right, but something like Usharon, who's like 500, 450, and has an ability that you can't get it any other way, you almost can't not take him. It's actually where I'm at right now with Gordrak and Ironjaws.
Sure.
I've been tinkering around and playing around with Gordrak. The reason, like, Gordrak goes in all my lists now because he gives an army-wide +1 to hit that you can't get in any other way in an army of 4+ to hit. Right?
Yeah.
So, if you want to perform, you almost have to have Gordrak in your list. Because he
Anthony,
brings something
I'm
so
using
invaluable.
700 as a baseline. I understand. She was like 680 and 660. She's been around. She's been 720. She's like, I'm just calling a baseline.
She was also 480 for a time.
If she's 660 points, she's 700 points. Like, we're just rounding here. Okay. So, Tom, I wanted to talk about the Warp Grinder because this has to be one of the worst rules I've ever read.
It's amazing. It's amazing how bad it is. Truly. Vince, go on your rant because I know you've been prepping for this one.
I disagree, Warpstone Enjoyer. Like, I understand what you're saying. Okay, I get it. I know you can, but this thing is terrible. Okay, because you're also assuming that null hole is going to be anywhere near, or that they haven't destroyed it, or something like that. Like, you're probably coming out of the one bunkered in your zone. But this is really bad. Okay, so whatever. Pick this unit up to one friendly non-monster Skaven unit. If those units have not been deployed, put them in the tunnels below. Okay, fine, great. So far, with you. So it's just like putting anything in reserve, which is why it could like pop out of a regular null hole if you wanted to later. All right, so now your movement phase. Declare, pick this unit if it is in the tunnels below, then pick an enemy unit more than 6 inches from all other enemy units to be the target. All right, that is a crazy restriction and very easy for your opponent to like just shut off. You will literally never have a target. You could literally never have a target for this. right? Like that's possible.
Yes, because like it's not wholly within; it's just within 6 inches.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if your opponent knows how
Because
this works, which any skilled, like a high skill opponent will,
yep,
you will never be able to declare this ability.
correct,
Period.
correct.
They will just keep each unit roughly within 6 inches of every other unit. And at most, what you'll get a shot on is a prospector running take the flanks.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Great.
Yep. Yep.
Great.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
what I
not even
wanted
a
to.
guarantee. It's not even a guarantee against a prospector. It's a chance to come against a prospector.
Yeah, wonderful. That's definitely where I wanted to stick hundreds of points of my army, way out on the flank, to fight a 80 to 100 point speed chaff unit that's there to get some battle tactic points. Yeah, that's definitely high value there. And then leave my slow walking units stranded way out there. Okay, fantastic. So first of all, any opponent can just shut this off, so you can literally never do this declare. All right.
Yep.
Like one of the only armies where that's going to be where this might be tough is against like giants, like Suns, because they only have 4 units, so they have to kind of like roll in 2s to make sure you can't do this. All right, find your buddy. Find your buddy.
Well, their bases are big enough that having a 6-inch gap, like you're often going to run giants in such a way, right, where you're going to want to pull them like multiple giants into combat and the like. So
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
even not.
I'm happy to run I always run my giants in pairs, yeah, because they chain activate. So let's go. At any rate, isn't it to the or to the Skaven's advantage if you're gathering up? I don't really have to gather up that much. I just have to be like within 6 inches is a big distance, and oftentimes you're just going to have power pairs. Your army can still be spread out everywhere. It's just like there's a hero who's benefiting from guarded hero standing next to this unit, which will often just happen. And then over here, there's like
so
your
neither
3
of
core centers. Neither of those can be targeted. Here's your core castle center. Nothing in there can be targeted. And here's 2 units over on the side. Neither of those can be targeted. Like I'm spread over the board. I didn't have to castle. Right. Okay.
Right.
All right. Effect. Roll a die. Well, I'm already upset. On a 4-up, it's worse. Set up this unit within 3 inches of the target and more than 6 inches from all other enemy units. Then set up, which is fine, because it would have been impossible for them to be within 6 inches anyways.
Right.
Then set up the unit that was in the tunnels below with this unit within 3 inches of the target, more than 6 inches from all enemy units. I really hate this in every way, because I hate setting up into combat. I just think it's a thing that shouldn't happen in the game. I just do. Okay.
Yep.
I think it's a garbage thing, and I think it's a third rail.
Ambushes should require a gamble. Like they should be a gamble when you throw the dice.
Yeah, I believe charging is the way you should enter combat. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
Well, they're not entering into combat. I guess they are within 3
inches. Oh, they are within 3
yeah,
inches. Yeah. You're in. You're fighting that unit, okay? But they were so scared of the fact that they were letting this unit set up into combat, which, by the way, what are you setting up? What are you setting up? Go ahead, Tom. What are you setting up? What's the thing? What's the thing that went in the tunnels?
I don't know.
What's the scariest thing in the book I would put into directly into combat with you?
Like Storm Vermin, maybe? Or Storm Fiends, sorry.
Yeah, theoretically, the melee-oriented Storm Fiends or Rat Ogres, right? Those are your melee hitters. Sure. Yeah. So right. 6 or 6.
Or a Doom Wheel.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's what you're picking. Mr. Benadryl, I absolutely hate Khorne's ability and think Murder Lust is hot garbage that should have never existed. That's what I think about that. Yeah, ostensibly what your best use of this isn't actually a melee hitter. It's just a big pile of clan rats that just ties them up. Okay, you're just using it to pin them in place, because it's very hard to just kill through 40 wounds. But yeah, Rat Ogres or melee Storm Fiends. The problem is by keeping them in the tunnels, you weren't actually able then to buff them with your good buffs that you're able to do, because there are most of those units require a series of buffs to actually hit even close to maximum efficacy, all of which this unit would have to exist for, which it didn't at that time. So, okay. Anyways, the point is, this is never going to happen. Okay. Yes, exactly. Peppo said this ability just reads on a 4+, bully a newer player. Yeah. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because anybody with any sense on how this book works can just shut it off immediately. Oh, you're running the grinder? Cool. Okay. And then they just, you will never call this. And then your unit will have to, and then like, if you don't have gnaw holes to jump out of for any reason, the unit just dies. Like, because it is very likely you will never use the declare on this ability, and even if you do get it once, you only have a 50-50 shot of succeeding at it. So very likely what's going to happen is you're going to put these two into the tunnels and then just like and then just pop up through regular gnaw holes. This rule is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And probably the gnaw hole buried in your own deployment zone. Awful. Garbage. You know, like, I mean, whatever. So, you know, like, this is terrible. This is really wretched.
This is what you're paying for if you buy a book.
I mean, you know, so anyways.
This is the hero's journey.
This is the hero's journey. This is real bad. Okay, anywho. Yeah, but then also, Tom, these guys are back. They're back, baby. They showed the Plague Pack. It's just Plague Pack now, apparently. They're back. Skabek's back.
Yeah. So all of those people that got rid of all their underworlds because they were told that they're discontinued now have to rebuy it if they want this unit of Skaven.
This is why you shouldn't sell models.
I really didn't think that they could mess up. Like, they could make their announcement, like their cancellation situation worse. Truly. But this is truly worse.
I mean,
hey, we're canceling this thing. We're not supporting it with rules anymore. Your models are useless in the new edition. Everybody's like, great, I'm getting rid of it. And then they're like, oh, by the way, you can use these now.
I mean, look, man. All I'm saying is I'm glad they're back. I want a foot Plague Priest. If this situation is how I get it, fine enough with me. I've still got my Plague Pack. They're ready to go.
I mean, well, I'll say this. They're beautiful sculpts.
Yeah, dude. These models are amazing.
Yes, they are beautiful, beautiful sculpts. But it frustrates me because like, are they going to do this with Sacrosanct? Where in like 2 months we'll be like, hey, guess what? We have these new box Stormcast. Check it out. And it's just the old sculpts. It's just the old Sacrosanct. And they're like, get your new Stormcast today.
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you, buddy. But at any rate, hey, they're back. So that's cool. Like I said, I don't know why they did it. It seems like a weird choice. It's very unfortunate. If you sold these off, I'm very sorry for you. I certainly kept mine because I love these models and just think they're really gorgeous.
Sure.
And like, cool. I guess this is your foot Plague Priest now, probably. This guy and his associated band of weirdos. But that's fine. Okay. So yeah, there we go. Any other news? I think that's all our Skaven related stuff. Realistically, I bet we've covered most of the changes in the Skaven book at this point in time.
Right. So when we do the show in 2 weeks, we're gonna be like, look at the pretty pictures.
Yeah. Nothing. Change. Same. Small change. Same. Like, that's what's gonna happen. It'll be a 10-minute
our exercise.
Show.
We're gonna build my Holy Wars 1,000-point list.
Sure.
That's what we're gonna do in the show in 2 weeks.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll build some lists.
You all get to be a part of that.
I'm sure we actually can do a list building thing. It'd probably be fun. People always ask us to do list building things because realistically, it's like, I mean, I can't imagine there's gonna be much to talk about with this book. So there you go.
We'll talk about
Autumn. Yeah, I understand, buddy. Those guys are in, what was that, Velmorn or whatever? Yeah, those dudes are in.
I got my set. Well, no, they're not anymore because you can't use them.
Doesn't matter.
they
They're just
jumped
such
up.
amazing sculpts.
They are, but like some of them are on wrong base sizes, so you can't even proxy them for anything. Like one of them is like a 4 and a 40 mil round. Like
Yeah, sure.
those aren't Graveguard. Um, yeah, like how horrifying would it be if when they released the new book, and they're like, oh, by the way, check out our new White King Entourage unit.
Sure.
Oh man. I hope people didn't sell all of their underworld, because who knows? Like what this says to the community is maybe you should have kept those units.
Yeah, lock in them underworlds warbands, I guess. Yeah, indeed. Because I guess that maybe they're back, baby. Who knows? One dot is not a line. I guess we'll wait and see. All right, cool.
Yep.
All right. I think that's all our news. It was a long news section. All right. We really got going there. All right.
We're committed.
Indeed. Tom, let's get to some pick of the week. Tom, what would you like to share with everybody? What would you like to share?
Given the questions about Zinch that we had earlier in the chat, I'm gonna pick friend of the show, Rob, Honest Wargamer. He did a show today about or 2 days ago rather, on is Zinch secretly amazing. He was just talking about the trends in the meta. He was tracking some wonderful Zinch lists involving a great interview by Caleb Walters, friend of the show, owner of Dorkdom Gaming, and it's so good.
I saw many people with his trackers at Nova. That's
I mean that's great product placement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's good. See, what he should be doing is like having a set for each of his opponents and be like, here.
Yeah, sure.
You're welcome, Caleb. I got you. Yes, so it was a great video, and it was long. Don't get me wrong, it was long, but it was. I love Rob's inclusion of like interview. Like he has little interview videos now with the various winners talking about their lists and how it works and all that. Like 30-second, minute long clips. And I would highly encourage you all to check it out.
Yeah, I think how Caleb's works is step one, be Caleb, and be really, really, really good with years of practice at knowing exactly how to pilot Zinch to incredible effect.
I don't disagree.
And that is the list is necessary but not sufficient, is what I'm saying.
I understand that. What I'll say is this: what I am noticing is a pattern, though, with most of the time, like people are trying to pull all of their units out of the general's regiment.
Sure.
The one exception that I've been seeing to this is the ranged unit, often a highly mobile, reinforced ranged unit, to stay in there for the basic +1 to hit and wound.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Because I've I saw winning Sylvaneth list. They did the same thing with the Kurnoth bows. Caleb was doing it with Skyfires. I do it with my my Cruel Boys, my Bolt Boys, like a 6-packer of Bolt Boys. The reality is that I think that that's a developing trend, and it wouldn't surprise me if we continue to see similar like lineups, right?
Yeah, sure, 100%. You put your one hammer in there, and especially if you can manage a ranged hammer, better. But any mobile hammer will work.
I really think it needs to be a ranged mobile hammer that can't get targeted. I mean, the key is
6 Varanguard's a pretty good thing in there. They're pretty mobile. They do the work.
Yeah, but you're also giving the enemy then a +1 to hit and wound as well, like against your hammer. And so that's why you want to
secret, Tom. There is no enemy after 6 Varanguard attack. That is the key. Corpses don't fight back. That's how they do it. You see, it's a pretty good trick. A reinforced unit of Skull Reapers, I think, would also do that, because if those things hit anything, they cease existing instantaneously. So but yeah, sure, absolutely. Like, yes, ideally, it's the perfect world is you can get a high hitting or a high. Either a high range or a hard hitting ranged unit in there, give them priority target, and then just let them go to town. The problem is if your enemy is also doing this, then you're just like your hammer is engaging their hammer or general, and that's it. That's the only target, right?
Right. Which at the end of the day, like for a ranged unit, they can pick out the general oftentimes. Like that's the point, right? is that like that's the value of doing a ranged unit where you don't have to worry about positioning and
Sure.
movement.
Yep.
Because the range can reach out and touch people.
Sure. All right, my pick of the week is going to be for the future, which is tomorrow on Mr. Haywo's channel, good friend and all around great guy. The next in our ongoing series of Rifts games will be played. Tomorrow is the Great Train Heist, and this time we mean it. Last time ended up being a little more prep than we had, because as we had to. Last week was more, or 2 weeks ago was rather like we lay out the plan. It was the Ocean's 11. We talk through the plan, right? Now we're executing the plan in tomorrow night's show. So check us out over on Haywo doing an actual play of Rifts, a truly insane and wacky game, as my strange alien four-armed special forces cyborg and a psychic pilot of flying power armor and a wizard from an other dimensional library all go and try to sack a train to steal an ancient powerful satellite from the golden age. So there you go. At any rate, check it out. For everybody out there, hey, if you're watching at this point and you haven't hit like yet, what are you doing? Don't forget, hit like, hit subscribe, hit things, make things, be cooler. And don't forget, you can like super chat things and stuff like that for questions when we get there. So cool. Tom, let's talk about a little hobby time. So we'll talk just quickly about what we're working on, and then we'll use that to transition directly into the main topic, since it's all about hobby tonight. What you working on?
I spent a lot of time playing games this weekend.
Sure.
But it's not a game I can talk about because it's not out yet. It hasn't been released or announced yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it. And then I'm doing some painting and working on my stuff for Holy Havoc later this fall. I will say, because I just remembered it, mentioning Holy Havoc, that the signups are available for Holy Wars for those that are interested.
Yes.
Vince and I are going to be going to Holy Havoc later this fall. And for Holy Wars, which is in February, signups are open and they do have some slots available. So we were supposed to announce that in the news and I forgot.
All right. So for myself, I was at Nova over the weekend, which was amazing. I got to judge Capital Palette again. I got to be part of the Capital Palette and stuff like that. I got some really... So, like, I'll talk about this for a moment, because this is certainly part of my hobby experience. I didn't do as well as I was hoping in the Capital Palette. I mean, I won some awards, which is, like, amazing. To win awards at all in the Masters Division is very, very hard. The quality level at Capital Palette in the Masters Division is incredible. And Chistoff and Eric are really great judges, so I'm not upset about, like, what happened in that regard. But what was awesome was I got to spend time with each of them and get like some detailed feedback on my models. And I want to make a video out of the feedback because it really was transformative. Like the way that like it sort of, I think it made me better as a judge and giving feedback and getting feedback. That's why I appreciate working with both of them. Like these are both deeply experienced judges and miniature painters. And it, I think, broke me through a plateau. Like, despite being sad at the outcome, somewhat, I found myself more excited to hobby when I got home, after I kind of processed through everything, than I have been in a long time. And it really, like, their feedback really helped me unlock something in my brain, Tom. Okay? That I had been kind of struggling with as far as like how I was thinking about models. So I want to make a video out of it because I think it was really good and really helpful. And so I wanted to thank both of them for being just like amazing judges and friends and just great people who sort of help things click there. I'm working on a thing right now. I got home and started hobbying, but I'm working on a thing I can't really share. So sorry about that. But instead, what I will also say is I came home with something exciting, Tom.
Oh,
This is what I came home with. This I can share. You see this right here? This is
I
Dirty
do.
Down Gore and Dirty Down Snot from the makers of Dirty Down weathering products, Rust and Verdigris, which I stan and think is awesome. If you've ever used them, you know they're really good. This stuff, this is blood, sticky blood in a bottle, and snot, which you can color. The snot is a clear mix of this that you can color and mix with inks directly and then use or whatever. Or you can paint on the model once it's set. This stuff I am very excited to put to use in some videos. So look for that coming up soon. And even more excitedly, I talked to the distributors for this stuff in the U.S. and got a nice hookup with them. And now, if you're interested, you will find a link down in the description where you can pick up all this stuff, all the Dirty Down stuff. I don't know if it's just in the U.S. or not, but like whatever, you can check it out where you can pick it up and get 10% off, which is cool. So there's a little coupon code down there. You can use that. Yes, there's Moss as well, Cygnus. So you can go check that stuff out. As far as I know, I don't know if the Gore and Snot is up yet. He had it for sale at Nova, and that was like for the first time, like literally for the first time it was for sale there. He said he finished the bottling process for all of it on the Monday before Nova. So I don't know if it's up on the web store yet. But this stuff is really good. It's so much better. Like I got to play with it some there already at the convention. It's so much easier to work with than Uhu Glue. Like I like crazy. So I know the Snot and Gore will be available very soon if they're not already on the website. And obviously the Rust and Verdigris and Moss are available now. You can find the link down below and it will be in all my videos going forward. And you can use the little coupon code to save 10% anytime you pick that stuff up. So, hey, pre-orders do look to be up. Awesome. Check it out. These bottles are 15 milliliters, by the way, just out of if you're curious. So, there you go. Okay. Cool. So, yeah, check it out. But it was great to talk to them. The product looks absolutely amazing. I'm pretty stoked for it. I've just got to find the right, I got to find the right models to use it on. Realm. Will people judge me if I slap chop most of my miniatures with highlights? No. No one's going to judge you. I mean, except to judge you as awesome for having painted miniatures. And Tom, with that, why don't we use that to transition here into our main topic, shall we?
Sure.
Let's talk about hobby and getting your army done. Hobby tips for army painting. All right. This is a hobby episode. And that's because both Tom and I were feeling this. When I got back from Nova, I was just like jazzed. Like, let's go. I had the juice. I got so many models there too that I want to paint. So looking at other people's amazing art, getting great feedback and really like actionable feedback, and then having new models to paint. I don't know what else you could like. That's everything. That's the holy trinity here. I need to just like take a hiatus or something from all my other normal work and from the channel to just sit alone in a room and paint for like 4 weeks or something. Like no videos, no nothing. Just me quietly in a room on a mountaintop painting. That's what I actually need. But Tom, I wanted to share us because we both painted quite a few fair armies. And Dim the Creative says I got a bunch of the Neko Galaxy stuff. Awesome. Yes, I got to meet all of them. They're awesome people. It was great. Okay. So let's get into it. All right, let's start with a simple one. I've talked about a lot of these before. Okay. But let's start with the top tips to get done. Okay. These are my top 5 like things you utilize if you want to get your army done. Okay? So here's my take on it, Tom. We'll see where you land. Number 1, find the level you'll be happy with, but you will finish. What I mean by that is do not overpaint. That relates directly to number 2, which is do a test model to make sure that that level is not going to take too long and that you're going to get there. And the test model should not be the simplest unit in the army. It should be like a medium-sized foot character or something with like because if you can get that model down to a reasonable amount of time and a time that you're happy with, then you can batch out the normal guys even faster than that.
It's so true. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I was thinking about my test model for my Cruel Boys, and like it was like a 40 mil foot soldier hero, and
Yeah,
I
sure.
was like, oh, that's hilarious. Like, it's not my smallest model, it's not a huge model.
Yep.
Like, it just, the default was to go for that. I often choose something that I know that I'm not going to field right away, so that if it looks bad, it's not going to end my army, right? Like,
Yep.
I test paint a model that I'm not actually going to play, just because if it's off, or the color, some of the coloration, or some of it's weird or wonky, it actually doesn't affect the rest of the army when I go to competitive play.
Sure. Absolutely. And by the way, if it's slightly off, no one's going to notice.
Right? Most won't. Yeah.
Yeah. John was on absolutely. What's up, Kieran? How you doing there, sir? I got to hang out with him some this week. It was great to catch up with him.
Nice.
So, at any rate, like, I can't push this enough. Find the happy medium level, right?
Yeah.
Because I will see people push themselves and like just try to go all out on a test model, and they create a scheme that just is never going to be replicatable over a whole army because they don't have the like. And I say this in the nicest way. All right, I'm not trying to be like a jerk, but they just don't have the endurance to sit there and paint the same army for 9 months or a year at that level of quality that it's going to take to repeat the same task over and over again, right?
Vince paints a lot, folks, but I wish you could have heard the bitching as he painted his rat cast.
Yeah.
His red armor, his red non-metallic metal armor, or true metal, whatever it was.
It's not metallic.
Man, like,
it's not metallic.
The whole non-metallic red. Like, he's like, what was I thinking? Why did I do this?
Yeah.
There's units that Vince wants to add to his rat cast right now that Vince has chosen not to paint.
And never will.
It never will, which is blasphemy. Let's be very clear. This man tries to get through all of his backlog, but he has things on his shelf because he doesn't want to paint that paint scheme.
Yeah, it's just never going to happen. Like, it was great. I got to more than 2,000 points. Like, I have my 2K army done. I'm like, my endurance was such. Like, I know my limits. I was able to get to the army just over. Like, I have about 2,400 points or something like that on current points, right? Somewhere in that range. Like, I've got a couple extra flex units. But I was able to get to that point, and I was like, I am done. I am done with this. I refuse to go back, right? I'm not going back. So, like, you've got to find that level. And I don't mean that in any, like, I think I have more endurance than most for this stuff. Like, those things took forever. Armies regularly take me 6 months longer, even painting the amount I paint, right? My individual models, like, I'm happy to spend 6 to 12 hours per model in an army, right? Mm-hmm. And like, even I will crack my limit on that. So, like, if it's taking you that long, right, you'll just hit the point where you're like, you just won't go back and do it. Unless somebody puts a gun to your head later on. Steve says, had the same issue with my Sylvaneth leaf cloaks. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Like, if you make the paint scheme, here's the simplest way I can say it. If you make the paint scheme not fun, if you make it arduous to do, you will stop. Right? Like, you will stop. Your incentive to finish will wear thin, and you will stop. That's it. That's what it comes down to. Because, like, humans, because you're human, that's all. Okay?
Yep.
All right. So, like, test, keep it, as simple as you can, and like, use whatever speed techniques Even if it doesn't look perfect, even if it doesn't look great, who cares? Getting done is better than having a third of an army finished. Audio Anarchy says, my friend's frustrated by Giselles with priority target, especially hearing shooting is weak. Could you elaborate on what makes shooting weak? Sure I can, Audio. Shooting is generally weak in the game because most shooting units in the game are shorter range, or do less damage. They're more for peppering and stuff like that. Now, that doesn't mean there's a difference between shooting is generally weak and all shooting is bad. That is not what I'm saying.
No,
right?
There is good shooting in the game right now.
Yes, there are armies that can win by shooting. Unfortunately, I don't think very much. I think there's like one KO list that can pull it off, but most of it's not in the KO army. I did play a KO game, by the way, recently, Tom, where I just literally got flatlined like horribly.
I was his training game.
Yes.
And somehow Iron Jaws pulled that. I won with Iron Jaws.
And then very quickly my opponent learned and then flatlined me without me literally ever rolling an attack dice. Yes.
We talked through what needed to change, and I hear it went well for him.
It went well. But anyways, like things like Giselles or long strikes or stuff like that can actually like pack enough of a punch to cut through and do the damage can still be very powerful. Okay. But like with everything, there's that doesn't mean they can't be shut off, caught flat-footed, etc. Okay. Hope that helps, and thank you for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. That's awesome. Okay. My next one here, Tom, is the whole, you can't have any pudding if you don't finish your meat or whatever, like you gotta, or you gotta eat your vegetable things. Okay. So like the way I have this written is units, character, unit, special treat. Right.
Yep.
So like paint a unit, paint a character, paint a unit, paint a character, paint a unit, and then paint a special treat. And like I literally am ordering it those in that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I do all of my prep. Some people may agree with this or not. I do all of my prep at the same time. And so I build all my bases. I do all my stuff. I get everybody built and ready. And then I prime Zenithal, and then I start painting so that like all of that building process stuff is out of the way, and that I can go smoothly between units without having to like revert back to building and get my basing materials out and do all that stuff. So in the alternation, my advice would be to, yes, alternate, but like do all of your prep for like whatever you're going to play, right? Like it doesn't have to be exactly what your army is, and you're always going to want to paint more than what your army is. But when I prep like 1,000 points at a time or 2,000 points of an army at a time. And then I'll play with my Zenithal models as I'm painting them, like as I'm working through them. But I found that if I like piece things out, it's a problem of like doing basing separate for different units and stuff like that. And so for me, I try to get through those major stages all together. And then when I get to painting, that's when I begin alternating.
Yeah, agreed. That's fine. Yeah, prep wise, I agree. Like you can prep all of it up. That's a good idea. I because that also keeps you moving throughout the process. So I like that. I'm with that. I don't have that on here, but I think that's actually a really good tip, Tom, is like get that prep stuff done, the assembly, the filing, the sanding, the mold line filling, or whatever you're going to do, right? Whatever you need to do, all that stuff. And then like even potentially priming and zenithaling or whatever, if that's part of your process, right? Or the zenithaling, that is to say. And so like get them ready so that you can just be like, and I'm done with that and I'm on to the next unit, right? It's just like boom on the table, boom on the table. Lower the barriers to entry. Right, to you actually sitting down and painting. All right,
and the next step, and whatever the next step is, you want to lower the point of tension or resistance.
Yep. The grid said I found that painting the same material too much wears me out. Getting to the end of my Sylvaneth, and I'm so tired of painting bark, even though I like how the color came out. Yeah, that's certain armies you can really hit that wall if you that's why I do value armies that have a lot of different like materials in them. It's one of the fun things about something like honestly like Skaven, where it's like a machine and then this other thing or whatever, right? So that's cool. Let's see. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. Um, Stephen Powell says, my issue wasn't exactly that I made my Stormcast too complicated. It was that I went too hard on them after I had burnt out painting 2 boxes of Zombicide within the prior year. Yeah, I mean, that's just it. That's why I say you got to find that right level, right? That you're going to be comfortable, and you can just, you can say for the next 3 months, if I do this, am I comfortable with this repeatedly, right?
Yeah.
All right. Radio Space said, Vince, are there models in the armies that can make painting much harder by the sheer amount of stuff on it? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Some armies have really, really complicated things, and filigree. Chaos is known for this. Varangard are a great example that are just super annoying. So, like, yeah, and like, know that those dudes are just going to take a lot of time, right? Somebody in here, Lofty, said, if I'm scared of being not good enough for my AOS models, is it worth it to practice on CMON Marvel models with predetermined colors to get my skills and confidence up, or is that sacrilege? Well, nothing's sacrilege. Painting anything is good. But I say no. Paint the AOS models. Life is short, okay? Paint the things you want to paint, period. Like, don't worry about not being good enough. Your future self will always be better than your current self, period. You will always
look at models that you've done and go, I could have done that better. And sometimes the result is to make the foolish decision that Vince does and just buy the same army and repaint the same army over again.
Yeah, just you can always do it.
Are you on your 3rd round of Skaven army?
Yeah, third and a half.
Is this your third and a half actual repaint of Skaven?
Yep. Yeah. Complete repaint. Yeah. That's fine. Who cares? You'll always be better. Go for it. Pain Generator, thank you for the super chat. And he said, with how bad Skaven has been performing at tournaments, don't you think we need something OP? Well, I never want things to be OP. Pain Generator is my honest answer. I just don't think that's a good way to play. Like, books should be well designed with interesting and varied options that allow for smart play. They shouldn't have OP elements in them. Now, like, you don't need to write game breaking stuff to have a good army. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, like, what I want to see is a bunch of the things that are clearly too strong. Cough, Night Haunt, cough, cough. Get just, like, absolutely wrecked. Like, they need to be wrecked because they are so far outside the pale. Like, they need to come way down. And I want to see most armies, I don't want to see them go down to, like, 30%. I want to see them hover around 50, where armies should be. The fact that they're, like, almost 20 points outside of that norm is crazy. It's crazy. So, yeah, like, Skaven clearly needs something. They're also a very high skill floor army. Like, Cruel Boys and Khorne are also low on the win rate percentage, and those are really good armies. Okay, in the hands of, like, a good pilot, they're good armies.
But it's also, at least for Cruel Boys, it's a slot machine. You're still rolling random dice, and you can't control when you roll ones
Spike,
and twos and threes.
I understand.
No, I'm just like that. That's also why, like, that it's a win big or lose big army. Like, that's just what that army is. And so it averages out to 40.
No, it averages out to a lot of people not knowing how to exactly time and use and do those things, and then also having some bad luck. But there's a reason why of the, like, top 10 players in the tables at NashCon, 3 of them were Cruel Boys. Okay, like,
there's also a reason why at Nova, that there was 1 in the top 8.
Yeah, sure, total, which is, like, pretty great actually, right? Like, that's great. That's exceptionally good. But anyways, yes. So,
but it's not like 20 points out of whack good is what I'm saying.
No, God, no. Right? No. I'm saying Cruel Boys probably still need some buffs. I'm just saying I think they're strong. Though what I'm saying, Tom, is the win rate isn't everything. You can't look at that alone and judge the full quality of the army.
Sure.
That's all. Okay, so let's see here. Okay. Boop, boop, boo. Ah, yes. Zavira says, I find it so hard to let go of, I noticed this little detail to paint, even though no one's going to notice ever. We'll talk about that in a minute, Zavira. I very much have thoughts on that. Okay, Tom, here's my next top tip to get things done. You ready?
Yep.
Find a little time every day to paint. Keep your hobby setup ready so you can sit down with no prep. You've got water on the desk. You've got your wet palette. You can put paint on there and a brush, and you're painting. And, like, you can go within 20 seconds, you can go from not painting to painting, right? Now, some people have, like, busy lives, kids. Every day is just not possible. That's fine. Don't beat yourself up if you don't have that kind of time in your life. Okay, the reality is people have lots of commitments that aren't their hobby. If you can't do it every day, that's okay. Okay. But then if you can't, schedule some time. Set aside time. Like actually put it on your calendar. Schedule it out. Right? And then sit down for that block of time and paint and take it seriously, just like you would any other your meeting, or like like if you were going to go to a doctor's appointment or something, right? Like treat it like that. Okay. And Cygnus says, man, I went a year and a half where I painted every single day. I made so much progress, even though I painted for 10 seconds some days. 100%. Right? Like, it's just, absolutely correct. Even if you sit down and you get 10 minutes in, if you make it a daily habit, it will get crazy. But if you can't, then just schedule out some time. You got 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 1 day a week. Fine. Great. That's great. Just make sure you sit down and do it. Okay. What do you think about that, Tom?
No, I agree. Prioritize it. It's what I need to do.
I mean, like, it's the chipping away at the thing. Right? That's what it is. Like, it's the doctor punching the wall of diamond. Right? Like, it's going to take a while, but eventually you'll get through. That is still one of the best episodes of New Who ever. And then it got followed up by like one of the worst episodes ever. So, hey, life's funny sometimes. Anyways, okay, here's my last one, Tom. You ready? Cheat.
Yep.
Cheat like crazy. Everywhere you can. Cheat means, like, I'm putting this in big, giant, massive air quotes, right? So, Zenithal Prime, use speed paints, use, like, slap chops type styles, use streaking grime, dry brush like crazy everywhere, have an OSL glow to add a color or something to one side of it and paint it all in one tone, right? Like, I don't care, man. Whatever. Do whatever works. Like, there is lots of options here. I did as well, Morden. It was so good. Go ahead.
It's so funny to me because, like, so obviously, like, my son is also, like, this is the first time that he's prepping for an event, right? And so he has we fully prepared his army. It is fully zenithal. He went and dry brushed everything with the ivory to, like, on the zenithal to, like, heighten the heights. So he's ready to sit down. We did a test model with him. Like, so it's so funny, like, looking at your list, because we did all the things, right? Like, we've done all the things, and he gets through the test model, and he does, like, the whole test model in, like, an hour or so. And he's like maybe a little bit more than an hour total. And he's like, oh, because again, you got to remember, like, he's like total of like 16 models total for the army.
Yeah.
And he gets one done in like an hour, and he's like, oh, okay. I think I can do this. And I was like, yeah. So now what you just do is repeat this process. And as he's working through, and one of the funny things is like, he's doing full zenithal, like, speed paint, like slap chop all the way down. And he's like, is this okay? And I was like, hey, it's okay for you for your first army. We're going to get through everything. We're going to do this base coat through everything. And depending on how much time we have, we'll go back and we'll clean up, I'll show you how to do some scratching on the armor, like, we'll get there, but let's just get your armor or your army done. That's right. Then we'll go back and, like, clean it up and spruce it up. Like, all that can be done later. Let's get you having a playable full army. And so it's so fun to see him go from, like, I hate this, I hate painting, I just want to roll dice and play, to, like, oh, wait a minute, I can do this. And for him, it was just some of these small tips and just seeing, like, the shortcuts and the cheats and all that, and seeing all that come together and go, oh, wait a minute, like, this is doable. And cheating is a big piece of that, right? It's like, and like ordering things and working from inner to outer as you're painting the model, so that, like, if you're messing things up, you can fix it as you're painting and all that. Like, all of those kind of tips and tricks and all that all help in that process.
Yep. Exactly. Like, it's just, like, the simple stuff, it really does often come down to just, like, these simple processes, habits, things like that that are usually what people get hooked on, right? And or caught up on. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. And hitting the proper bases will get you there. Yeah. Yes. What if I never clean it up because I finally finished it? Then who cares? Great. Then success.
Right.
Great victory. Like, you're done. Yeah. Like, it means it's good enough. Like, I judge a lot of armies. A lot of armies. I judged at Nova this weekend too, okay? And the reality is, this is a lot of people's armies. Like, there was, full shout out, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the player, but he had like a Cities of Sigmar army, Tom, that was like really gorgeous. It was simple, but incredibly clean, okay? Painted in like traditional GW style. And it was big.
Yeah.
Like steel helms and cavaliers galore. Okay. Wow. And I had nothing but respect for that. But then, like, you know, but there were other armies that used a lot of different techniques that were also in there in the top, right? Like, lots of things can look good, but done is the best.
The done looks the best.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely, Corbin. Yeah, universal highlight and shadow, 100%. Like, you always have the same highlight color, the same shadow color. You're just working with whatever the base tone is, then you just push it into those two zones, right? You got a sunny skin tone as your highlight and a Payne's gray as your shadow, and then you just zip through the rest of your colors. Your browns use those two, your reds use those two, and so on and so forth. Okay? And I agree, Andrew. So many people won't dry brush because they think it's just for bad painters, which is crazy. It's crazy. Dry brushing's amazing. And, like, it can absolutely do wonders. Go watch, like, Byron from Artis Opus, right? If you want to see what you can accomplish with dry brushing, and tell me that's just for bad painters, right? Like, that's a bunch of nonsense. So it's garbo. Okay. I mean, like anything, you can dry brush badly. You can do anything badly in painting. Like, that doesn't mean, like, we're way too happy to just throw the whole baby out with the bathwater with that, right? That'd be like, well, I painted with this brush wrong once, so hence brush painting must be terrible. Like, what kind of nonsense? Right? So, at any rate. All right. Hobby resources. Okay. So, this is a little different, Tom. My thought here on hobby resources is like things that you, like physical things you can have that I think actually make a difference. We have a very tool obsessed hobby. Yeah.
Yep.
Gear obsessed. The old gas gear acquisition syndrome, right?
Yep.
And so a lot of times there's stuff I think people get really obsessed with buying that they think is going to like change their entire hobby. And I think a lot of it doesn't do very much. Like, some of it can be convenient stuff once in a while or whatever. But this is my list of stuff that I think actually does matter. Okay. Like that actually does work, as it were. Yeah. You with me?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Number one, a good airbrush can do a lot of work. That's it. Like, I'm sorry.
Your slide hasn't updated yet, but like that was my guess, was airbrush from the get-go. Yeah.
100%. Like, an airbrush can do so much work. Mr. Morden here. Let's see. Vince, this is probably a stupid question. Nonsense. But how do you get over the depressed, regretful feeling when you sell a lot of your minis that you've painted? Well, I don't really sell my minis, so that's going to be hard for me to give you specific advice. But I'll say this: I've sold some stuff, and my answer is, what are you depressed about? You sold something you painted before. That was a past you. That's not the you now. You never throw a rock in the same river twice, right? In the same way the river is never the same, neither are you. And the you today is capable of more than the you who painted that army ever could have imagined. So if you sell something, it just gives you the opportunity to paint a new army, even the same army again, to a new standard, a different standard, a better standard, potentially, if you want. But to experiment, to do something new, and to continue the art. Like, the hobby and painting these figs is in and of itself a reward, right? The journey is its own reward. That's what's so magical about this. So it's nothing but an opportunity. That's what I would say, buddy. That's my response for you. Okay. So, Tom, yeah, good airbrush. I mean, you know this, right? You're an airbrush fan. You and I have both been.
Yeah.
I think I've showed you
Yeah.
some stuff over time. I've watched you ruin my airbrush setup.
Oh, it's great.
You came to
Yeah, great.
one of our Vinci cons once. That you disappeared for like 6 hours. We were all out there painting at the desk, and all we could hear in the other room was like, psh, like Sam and John and I were all out hanging out, and all we could hear in the other room was. Psh, 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 psh. This goes on for like ever. We're working our way through like one thing. Tom comes out that night. He's like, "I finished my army."
I walk out with a tray of Night Haunt, and I was like,
Yeah.
done. Time to clean up the edges, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, it
Yep,
can
that
do a
happens.
lot of work. It can do a lot of work. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I had a chance, Tom, this weekend. I can talk about this.
Okay.
I had a chance this weekend to get my hands on the new Infinity airbrush. So basically,
Okay.
the new model that's replacing this. This is the CR
Yep.
Plus, right?
Yeah,
So this
I
is
have
the
I have that one.
yeah, sure. That's replacing this, and holy crap, it's so good. It's such an amazing airbrush. Like just the level of detail and thought and like small upgrades. Like when you get your hands on it, it's just crazy. Like the trigger control in the new one is so lightning smooth. The down to like the shape of the cone that holds to the needle is changed to change the way that the airflow happens over there. It's like there's some kind of name for the effect of how the air happens that tightens the cone farther because of this like slight. They had to angle grind this thing down just like to this very like 3-degree different angle, but you can see it. And it's wild. I'm pretty excited about that one. So, anyways, a great airbrush can do some really amazing work. Okay.
It's true.
Here's my next
And
one. Okay.
to be clear, you can have a single workhorse airbrush for a decade and be fine.
Yeah, sure. 100%.
I use the same airbrush exclusively for like it was used. I bought it used, right? And used it for another 8 years before I got a higher end one. Right? And many armies were painted with that airbrush. And so and I still use that as my primary airbrush. I only use my high end one like when I want to do fine detail work and I don't because I don't want to have to clean it.
Yep.
But but so you don't need like a super high end airbrush like an Eclipse, you know, Iowata is just fine. Like it'll get all the work done that you need to do. You don't need to drop $300 on it. On a Herder Steinbeck or something.
Okay. Yeah, agreed. I mean, agreed.
Like you're
Does
welcome
Harder and
to, but you
Steinbeck
don't
use the
have
same threading as an Iwata? I mean, I assume you mean for the connection joint, and yes, it does. At any rate, Craig Knight, can I just do a Cities of Sigmar human army? I really want to just use the new models, and I'm wondering if it's viable. Yeah, 100%, dude. 100% you can do a
Yep.
human-focused army. Yes.
I saw a real high drop one in the video that I recommended that'll be in the show notes. Somebody did that. It was like a 4 or 5 drop. And Rob was really high on it. He's like, if I was running this army, this is what I would run. And I looked at it, and it's very similar to what I would do, which would be a like a high drop human army, like full human army.
Yeah, I mean, I am
all the
interested in
diversity.
exploring more the armies that can go high drop and not care, because I think there is
Right.
some in there, and I think Cities is one, I think Skaven's one, etc.
Yep.
Yes. I was just going to ask, when do you do the upgrade to a better airbrush? The answer is when you feel that you're not able to get the exact control and precision out of whatever your current airbrush is. So like as you improve over time and your trigger control gets really sharp and really fine, like I can paint very small lines and stuff like that with my airbrush. Now, there are airbrush artists who are like as far away from me in skill as like I am over someone who just picked up the airbrush. Like it's amazing to watch them work, right? But like I can be pretty tight and pretty sharp with it and pretty controlled. So like once you're getting to where you're like, okay, I've got my trigger control down, you're getting in there, but you just can't get the tightness, the precision you want, that's when it's time for an upgrade, right? Get something that can take a 0.15 or a 0.2 needle that you can work, that you've got the proper control on. And then you'll have to retrain yourself on that new one a little bit. You won't be able to just pick it up and start
Every
rocking and rolling
airbrush
right
is
away.
different.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. And you'll have to relearn techniques with each one. Yeah,
100%.
that's absolutely true.
Next one, Tom. Cheap makeup brushes for solid dry brushing. We mentioned Byron earlier. I love Byron. There are many great things Artis Opus makes. You can just buy makeup brushes for your dry brushes. Okay, it's the same stuff. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to ruin Byron's business. They make perfectly good regular brushes that are very much worth it. But like, whatever, right? Just like cheap makeup brushes that you buy in big packs. I have both shorties and longies. They come in giant packs. I buy them off of Amazon. You can use them, rinse them, alcohol them, toss them if you want, whatever, and you're good to go. And like, they do a much better job. A round makeup brush is going to be so much better than anything you're buying, any nonsense dry brush you're buying from a hobby supply store.
It's so funny because like what my son and I were like prepping to do our board, right? Mm-hmm. Like do some painting and do some dry brushing. And I was like, oh, I need to run to Walmart real quick. My wife's like, why? And I was like, I just need to pick up some stuff real quick. And I come back in with this like makeup brush bundle. And she's like, what is that? And it's this like gaudy, horrendous, like multicolored handle thing. And I was like, this is what I need. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, it's okay. Trust me. Mm-hmm. And my son was like baffled. But we went to work, and guess what? They were delightful. Those brushes did exactly what they needed to, and I didn't spend a lot of money at all.
Absolutely.
Right?
Like as Latino Hot mentioned, the Elf makeup brushes from the dollar store were great. Yep, 100%. I've got some dry brushes I frequently use. I think they're linked down below. If they're not, I'll make sure they're linked after the show. That I often buy these big packs. They're great. Like, I use the heck out of them. I use them in classes and stuff like that. Dry brushing is a powerful technique. It's not like, you can obviously for stuff like bases and heavily textured areas, but it can be great for other things too. And having a big range of size in your dry brushes gives you the power to actually have the control. So there you go. So that's a resource worth buying. And again, that's cheap. An airbrush, you don't necessarily have to spend, like, you can get in for, I don't know, if you need to buy the tank as well, let's call it $150 or the equivalent around the world usually for a good starter setup, but you can get a good airbrush
it would probably be $200 if you want like a nice Iowata and then the tank.
Sure. Yeah. Like, but you don't necessarily have to even start there, but sure, right? Like, let's say, let's call the airbrush thing like $150 to $250 to buy in, and then maybe over time at some point you spend like $200 on or $300 on a nicer airbrush.
Yep.
Makeup brushes, cheap, right?
Yep.
Okay. My next one, Tom, is also brush related, and that, Tom, is just bigger brushes.
Junk brushes. Big brushes.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Get them big brushes, baby.
That's the other thing the other thing that I did with my son is I was like, hey, we're gonna stop by Hobby Lobby, and my wife's like, why? Those aren't good sable brushes. And I was like, oh, it's okay. And I picked up one of those big multi-packs, and I was like, this is where we're gonna start. Like, we can clean up and do all the highlighting and all that later. That's fine, but we need some big junk brushes.
Yep. That's right. Like, just getting that big brush with a big belly that can put big paint on big models, right? Like, that's what you want. You can slap down them base coats real quick, wet blend them together, get that slap chop all over there if you're doing that kind of that kind of thing. If you're using some speed paint or something where you can work the whole surface really fast, it just makes a huge difference. Like, and this is a very obvious reality, right? That we know if you ever like paint your house, you don't paint a wall, like a whole wall, right, with like a small flat brush like this,
like a 1-incher, yeah, or
Yeah,
2
like
incher,
that's
yeah.
for doing edging small detail stuff, right? You get out a big roller and you go to town. All right? It's no different if you're doing anything of size, like or like where it's a lot of the same surface, right? So like
Yep. Yep.
Space Marines are a great example, but you could pick 100 other types of models, right? Where it's largely that thing, especially if you're doing like slap chop stuff. Bigger brush. You have to go back to the paint less. You can cover more. You cover more with each stroke. Huge deal. Huge deal. Okay. There you go. Varnak said the HPCS is a workhorse. I agree. I've had mine for more than a decade and still using it to this day. I do really like it. And yes,
it's my
it's good to have
primary
a
one.
workhorse airbrush. Yeah, it's good to have a workhorse airbrush. Yeah.
Yep. That's my primary one still.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Too many, as Cygnus said, too many tiny brushes is the way to go. Like, tiny brushes have their purpose. You need a few nice, sharp brushes to do some detailing, to do some sharp edge highlighting, to do little eyeballs or like small texture on things like that. That's important. Okay. It's not that it's not important. If you need to do like thin hashes or stuff like that, right? But that's for those specific purposes. Hammer, nail, screwdriver, screw, right? Or I should have said that the other way around, but you get it, right? Exactly. As Dylan said, a sharp number 2 gets me 95% of my job done. And realistically, Dylan, you go up to like a size, like depending on what you're working on, I often use like a size 6 or 8, homie, for a lot of the initial work. Like if I'm working on something of any size and I need to wet blend some skin around, let's go. Let's go. Get that big fat boy out, okay? And let's get work on there. Because I'm going to be able to paint the whole model. Like I'm going to dip that in the paint, wick off the excess liquid into a paper towel, and I'm going to paint the whole model without going back to that paint fast. Like let's move, okay? Okay. So there we go. Also, those big disposable sables are great for other types of things just to have around if you're going to use other types of paints, as we'll discuss in a moment. Or like you want to slap washes around or speed paints, or they can be great for things like pigment because you don't want to use your nice sable brushes when you're messing around with pigment and stuff like that. So just they have like a myriad number of uses, these big giant brushes, right?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Morden, what's your ratio for diluting
regular lines?
Regular lines.
I think
if you can't avoid. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. What's your ratio for diluting regular paints if you can't afford a massive box of air paints? I understand now, Morden. Okay, for airbrushing. Yes. 100%. For me,
choose good regular paints,
which we're about to discuss here in a minute.
Right. Is the answer. Like you don't need air paints. Just get regular paints that are
Yeah. No issue, Morden. We got it. 2-to-1 at minimum thinner to paint. At minimum. Often more like 3-to-1 depending on the paint. That's usually where I live. Somewhere in that range. Sometimes 4-to-1. I'm talking insanity. Like base coating and layering type work here.
That's insanity.
Like if I'm glazing, I do 8 or 10-to-1. So, I mean, there you go. My last one, Tom, you ready for this? This is going to sound weird, but it's like, I think it's really important.
No, it is important.
Good light, good chair. Good light on your desk. Like, I have the new Lucent. I saw a bunch of people picking them up. Again, there is a code down below if you want to save some money on the new Lucent lights, where you can pick it up. I do have an affiliate thing with them, so like, there you go. But like, seriously, I recommend this thing because I love this thing. I love this light. I have struggled with lights for years. I've had a bunch of them I don't really like, and that I haven't, like, that just haven't worked for me. And then I got the new Lucent light from Game Envy, and I was like, this is everything I've always wanted in a light. It is bright. It creates a beautiful halo. It has great individual controls. It's perfect. Right now it's out of view, but normally, if you look in the video with John, the recent video with John where he and I are just sitting there talking while we're painting, little mid-stream pick of the week. Check it out if you haven't watched it. It's really fun. The one where he has a bunch of footage interspersed. John and I will just hang out and paint sometimes, and this time we decided to record it. Hey, by the way, here's a question for everybody. let's say John and I just recorded a paint session once a week, and it was just literally us talking for an hour while we were painting. And let's say we just threw that up. Would you watch that? Just us talking for an hour about nothing with no expectation? Is that
Vince,
interesting to anybody? Go ahead.
we
So,
used to do that. They were called paint-episodes, and we did that regularly. And you know
I
what?
know.
Lots of people watch those. You already have the answer to this.
Yeah, well, I'm just interested in what people think. Anyways, there you go. So it was paint episodes, and we did do that a lot.
We
Anyways,
did.
yeah,
Like
I
it
kind of
was an
forgot we did
entire
that.
thing. It was an entire thing we did for a very long period of time.
Yeah, I kind of forgot we were doing that. But anyways, whatever happened to that? I don't know. YouTube changed, man. All right, so, but anyways, a good light. So like that Lucent lights changed my life. I love it so much. And then a good chair. Like the chair, honestly, of the things you're going to invest in, this is the most expensive thing you're going to buy. Okay, get a good chair. Uh, like I don't know what else to say. Spend the money. It's like a good chair might cost you the same as an army. Like you can get decent-ish chairs for like $200, but like a good chair is going to be like $400 to $800 to be honest. They're not cheap. Okay. And uh and like it's completely worth it. Like you're making an investment for your back, for your spine, for your endurance, your ability to uh, paint for hours and hours and hours on end. If you in any way are sitting on an uncomfortable thing, if you're hurting your back in any way, one, you won't come to paint often. Two, you will cause yourself long-term damage. Like sitting for extended periods of time is already not great. But if you're gonna do it, be in something where like I'm slouching in my chair right now, but like normally when I paint, I'm sitting like this, right?
Yep.
And so you want something that like that will actually give you the support for your back, make you sit properly, have a good posture, and so on. It really is the most expensive thing you buy, but it's the best investment you'll make. I don't know what else to say. I sat in a bad chair, that chair, this chair, as you can see, for like years to the point where it was hurting my back. Like it was hurting me really bad. But like I couldn't pick a new chair because I have decision anxiety, and so I was just sitting there for months because I kept looking at chairs and couldn't pick one. And finally, my wife was just like, "I can't take this anymore," and just got me a chair, which was very nice. I have an Aeron chair, like a Herman Miller Aeron chair, is what I'm sitting in right now, and would recommend. So there's lots of different Herman Miller Aeron chairs. None of them are cheap. I'm not gonna lie, like they're expensive. Okay. And yeah, you're right. Like radio space is exactly correct. Like exercise and stuff like that, you should be doing all those things because that will also help. Like if you're in good health, you can hobby longer.
Strengthen your core, etc.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's a great tip, Wiggles. He said find a furniture liquidator if you're near a good sized city, and you should be able to get a Herman Miller Aeron for around $300. Yeah, absolutely. If you can get with like secondhand, they hold up for years and years and years. Like they are well made. So just go to like a furniture liquidator and find one that was like pulled out of an office and used for a couple of years or something, and it's still great. Yep, absolutely, absolutely, a good idea. All right. Anything else on the actual physical product side, Tom? Are we missing anything here?
Like there's a bunch of gadgets that I don't think that I could do without anymore, that I really do consider like essential at this point for my hobbying.
Okay, hit me. Rapid fire it, buddy. What do you got?
Yeah, so like the Wonder Pen, the
Okay.
little pin drill
Yep.
thing. Like I remember doing that manually, and like I would have like blisters on my hands
Sure.
and like bruising and stuff like that from like drilling pins on feet, like for doing like pinning for bases and like it was always like I remember like looking at that job going like it was a major hurdle for me, right? Of like, oh god, I need to pin 50 of these stupid dwarves or whatever,
Yep.
right? And it was a struggle. And once I got that Wonder Pen, like literally it became a non-issue. It becomes a behavior that I don't even have to think about anymore.
Yep. Okay.
Because it was so straightforward and easy. Like truly.
Okay. Some people are asking about a wet palette, and yes, I would put it on this list, but I don't consider it as essential. Like, I think it's really helpful for actually like doing long work. I would absolutely put it on the list. But I know there are some people who like to use dry palettes or cold palettes or other options and stuff like that, and that's all fine. But if you're asking me personally, yes, a wet palette, 100%, yes, and for sure. And yet again, I'm completely in the tank for like Game Envy's exemplar wet palette. Like, it's really good. So, yep. So like it can matter. Your paints don't stay workable forever, but they're good. Like it's just it lets you sit there longer. You waste a lot of paint. But like a wet palette could be just as easy as like a Ziploc and a sponge you have and some dish soap and a piece of baking paper. It doesn't need to cost anything. Right. Yeah, exactly. Stephen Powell says the office chair I use 8 hours a day is dated from 2006. A good one will last forever. Yep. Absolutely. Okay. George C., any advice on airbrush ventilation? Like if you're using regular acrylic paints, just wear a mask and have something that pulls air through a HEPA filter, and you're fine. That's good. Yep.
Yep. My mask was not good enough, and I paid the price. I literally coughed for like 2 weeks as my lungs like did not recover well from that. So
you're just coughing up paint. Yeah, it's always a good time, right?
Like, yeah, exactly. And my my wife is like, "What is wrong with you?"
Yeah,
sorry,
I got the black lung pop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So popcorn lung. So my advice is make sure you have a good mask and that you have again something that's pulling the paint through a filter.
Yep, absolutely. And then you should be fine. If you're in a ventilated room, especially, that's good. Don't lock yourself in like a sealed room and then airbrush with those things. Okay. There you go. Some people are talking about files. Yep, like little mini files and stuff like that can be a good investment for cheap cleanup. Like these guys, these types of little mini files are really nice for just getting in and cleaning things up. That's all good. I mean, I don't know if I'd call them essential, but they are very useful. It's where I tried to draw the line here, like stuff that I thought was like really hugely impactful to overall progress, right? And the reality is, if you're just trying to get it done and you don't clean everything up as well as it could be, okay.
I'm just telling you, pin drills, man.
Oh, sure.
The right, and as well, I would say, are we going to do glue here, or are we doing that later?
No, you can talk about glue here. I don't mention glue at all. Go for it.
Having the right glue for the right task is actually kind of really important. And a lot of people don't ever make that connection. Like, your primary glue should be some type of like plastic weld. Like, that should be your primary glue for most of your GW minis, like a Tamio, like ultra thin or whatever. Like, that needs to be your go-to.
Yep.
That needs to be your primary thing. You need to have some super glue for like heavier plastics, for
resin,
metals,
cork, all
resin,
those kinds of things.
Metal, like all those things. Like, you need
I use this stuff from your buddy.
Yeah.
I use the Aquarium Co-op glue, which is this stuff rules.
I'm still working through mine, and I love the little disposable tubes.
Yeah.
Like, you can always throw the lid back on, but I just love, I love it's handy. I can get through it. Like, oftentimes with the big bottles, like something would hard and I'd end up like fighting the bottle. I never have to fight the bottle on those.
No, they're great. This Aquarium Co-op, check it out. It's really cool. This is, the person behind this company, right? It's like a person that you know.
Yeah. He was moving into my area. Yeah.
Yep. Great dude.
He's good dude.
And like, this stuff's awesome. It's safe for use with aquariums with fish, shrimp, and snails. Bonds with plants and aquarium decor, and obviously meant to be like it'll hold up underwater, so it's gonna hold up for your models. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yes, sprue glue as an ancillary. Like, I actually was just put on to, as an aside. I know we're deviating a little bit. Utilizing the resin, the UV resin that like you use for basing and stuff like that. John in one of his videos talked about utilizing it for crack filling.
Oh, sure.
Like, that's his primary like filling, like seams that you don't know what to do with, right? Just using that resin. And boy, was that a game changer when I started doing that for my current batch of models. And I was like, let me try this out and spread it. And I was like, why would I ever use anything else ever again?
Yeah,
That
100%,
stuff
man.
is magic.
Yeah, UV
Magic.
resin for gap filling is crazy because you can just like squidge it on, wipe
Yep.
it, and then
Yep.
dry it, and it's like
Yep.
gap is
It
gone.
disappears. Yep.
Yeah.
It's like it is truly magical. Like I don't know how I lived with any other type of gap filling. And so like yes, sprue glue is going to be great for that, but it's going to take a lot longer than UV resin, which is like, let me fill this, hit it with a light. Okay, I'm going to prime it now.
Yep. Mr. Benadryl, I doubt it. To your question about the screaming bell, I doubt it, sadly. Okay. Tom, let's have a paint throwdown, buddy. Let's talk about it. Here we go. Okay. You wanted this. You mentioned this.
Yep.
Let's talk about paints. Okay.
Yep.
You know my top 3 brands, right now. Pro Acryl from Monument, Army Painter Fanatic, the new line. Not the original, which was bad. The new one, which is good.
Yep.
And AK 3rd Gen. Okay.
Yep.
Them's my go-tos. That's where I'm living. How you feeling about my top 3 here?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, for me, like Pro Acryl is where I live. Like I have been working slowly adding to my collection, like as they're releasing paints and stuff like that. It is my Pro Acryl truly is my primary paint go to now. Like I've fallen in love with it. I've pushed most stuff off to the side.
Yeah. Nick, within our hobby, not much. Generally, you want most things to be matte. Occasionally, you can have some use, like there can be use for glossier satin things like Blood for the Blood God to do, like shiny blood and stuff like that, or like metals are shiny. Obviously, they're glossy, but they're metallic. Like there are some uses, but most of the time, most of your stuff, you want it to be matte. But there are exceptions. Varnax says only gripe about Pro Acryl is how it sits on a wet palette. Yeah, it's very hydrophilic, so like it will just break up on your wet palette over time. Like over a long time, especially if you seal it in. No doubt about that. But yeah, I agree. Like those, to me, what do I like about these paints? Somebody had asked earlier, like I bought air paints. Was that a mistake? When you're starting, no, they can be very helpful because they're effectively pre-thinned, right?
Yeah.
So has Army Painter really gotten that much better? Yes. I mean, we are talking night and day here, Morden. Like, I mean, the old stuff was garbage. The new paint is incredible. Okay? Like, it is a huge difference. Like, crazy different. I would not have ever recommend, like, if you look at my old videos, I was not using Army Painter paints in any of them. Now I use them quite often. They are regularly part of my workflow. So but like the trick with air paints is that you can never make paint thicker, but you can always make paint thinner. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Like it's that simple. So like especially when you're starting out, air paints can be nice because they kind of come already in a layer consistency, basically. Right. And that can be very helpful when thinning paints isn't really something you're very good at, right? But like as you understand how to control your paint consistency, you generally want thicker paints. And I'm sticking to hobby lines here because sometimes like you can just go out and get heavy body acrylics, but then that's going to require a lot of mixing and stuff like that. So like that's that's sort of your mileage may vary.
Yep.
But in general, all 3 of these paints are quite thick, high pigment, and like have a fairly matte or nearly matte or matte finish across the line. So they are rather stable. They all have a good range of colors, and so on and so forth. No line has every color I want, frankly. Not one of these. But I use a mix of all 3. Okay. So yeah, there you go. I mean, Tom, is that where that's good?
I mean, to be honest, like I live almost exclusively in Pro Acryl right now. With occasional I'll dip into like there's some things in the Citadel line that I'll use.
Sure.
And then I'm slowly adding like Army Painter Fanatic as there's like targeted colors that I want to grab.
Sure. You know, I
Yeah.
like it's funny because behind me in my videos, right? Like I'm sitting basically kind of in a different angle than where I am right now, but I'm sitting basically in the same spot when I record. And like behind me on the wall is like a bunch of Vallejo and Citadel stuff, which is ironic because I don't ever use it, right? Like,
Right.
but
That's why
this
it's
wall,
sitting there. Yeah.
this wall is all the stuff I actually do use, and I've thought about swapping because it'd be a lot more convenient if the paints I'm regularly using are actually right here at arm's reach.
In
But like I'm
frame,
like,
yeah.
man, that seems like a lot of work to like pull all that stuff off and make the change. But you know, I don't know. At some point, I may do it. So if suddenly in my videos, like what's behind me changes, you'll know I finally got enough time on my hands to like do that, or I got bored in a meeting or something. Um, okay. Fonky Joe says, please discuss primers. Sure, happy to. The only thing I generally prime with anymore.
Yeah. I just got put onto this. I haven't switched over. I need to buy my set
Is
of
the
Yep.
Mr. Hobby, Mr. Finishing Surface 1500 black primer. This is a lacquer based primer. It is thinned by their Mr. Color level thinner. Okay. Which is also flammable and terrible and toxic. Every single part of you then to clean your airbrush you use lacquer thinner, like the thing out of the tin can you buy from your hardware store. And every part of this is toxic and horrible, and will kill you if you're not wearing. No, I mean that's extreme. No, I mean like it's not good for you. You shouldn't breathe it in, right? And you have to wear like a real mask, with like a real mask,
Like
like a
HEPA,
respirator mask.
like a two filter HEPA like respirator
Yeah,
mask.
stronger than that.
Yep.
It has to be rated above organics. So, any rate, like the P100 or whatever. Um, the and so that's the only primer I use anymore because do you use I use the like I said the leveler to thin it, and then I just use like lacquer thinner. Literally, I bought at the hardware store to clean the airbrush.
Because it's magical.
Because it is magical and perfect, and uh it's incredible. It creates a thin, solid candy coat that is so freaking durable and perfect to paint on, and I love it. Can you get the Mr. Hobby primer in a rattle can? Yes, you can. You can get it in that, and they also make it in other colors too. By the way, they do make a gray and a white. So you can check out both of those as well. I just use the black because I usually want to work up from black, but if you want to do the whole zenithal with it, you could and get their gray or their white.
Well, right, but I mean, you could just primer black and then zenithal with like a normal gray and white.
Of course you can. You can just use normal paint.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like,
yeah, you don't need a primer for that.
Yep, yeah. And they're all amazing and perfect and great and wonderful, and would recommend 10 out of 10. The problem is they are toxic as all get out. So if you're talking about what did I use for a long time in the acrylic space, if you want to stay acrylic, then my go-to that I still use for like terrain and big projects or things like that is the Pro Acryl Dark Neutral Gray. Also, I use this for like class models and stuff when I need to prime up like 40 models. Like I'm not using that expensive bottle to prime my class models. Sorry. So yeah, Pro Acryl primer, dark neutral gray, great stuff. Love it. It's not black. I don't use the black. I like dark neutral gray. It's still quite dark. It's near black, but it's not as dark. So that's my go-to. There you go. And then for zenithaling, I do not use primer generally. I just use some kind of colored near white paint. Usually like an ivory or a buff or a skin tone or something like that. Like you don't actually want it to be dead white usually for your zenithal. It's better if it's like slightly warm or slightly cold or something like that, depending on what your overall color scheme is going to be. So yeah, dark neutral gray from Pro Acryl. That's my go-to. Yeah, there you go. If you want to stay in the acrylic space. So
yep.
Um, and yes, exactly. It actually like yes melts into the plastic, the lacquer stuff. By the way, so yeah. Um, so there you go. Andre D said I had problems with my black Pro Acryl primer and switched back to Vallejos. I'm wondering if I got a bad bottle since everyone's recommending it. Could be. I mean, I've had a lot of great use with it. If it's something that maybe got cold on the way, or like they do mix all their paint. Like they're like with anything, that kind of process, you could have a. There you go. Thank you, Chicago Hobby Hero. Appreciate it. Clarifying on the mask. Rated for organic vapor with lacquer. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so there you go. That's my stuff. And then just, yeah, highlighting that. All right, let's talk about Citadel paints. I hate them. But a lot of people use them. And, like, can you get good stuff out of them? Yeah, sure, of course.
I actually don't use any actual Citadel paints.
Sure.
I like their washes still.
Sure, of course.
Because I'm used to them. And I like a handful of their contrast paints.
Because they're good.
What, the washes?
Yeah, because they're good.
Yeah.
I got multiples of them in this scheme that I'm doing my new Skaven in right now. I don't use them, like, I don't wash the whole model, but I use them for targeted purposes, 100%.
Yeah. I like their washes, and I like some of their contrast paints. And so I still, those are in my regular rotation. A lot of other stuff, most other stuff isn't.
Correct. Like, to me, the stuff that Citadel is doing right is generally like contrast paints, though if they were in a dropper bottle, they'd be much better. So most of the time I'm just using Speed Paint 2.0. But like, yeah, in general, but the problem with Citadel is they're overpriced, they're in a bad bottle, and like that is to say they're in the pot, and all their layer paints are already pre-thinned in a way that is just like limiting. Now, if you really know them and know what you're doing, Richard Gray uses almost exclusively Citadel stuff, and he's pretty good. Turns out. So, like, yeah, you can get there with them. So I don't want to poop all over them, right?
Yep.
Okay. But like, I just they're not for me. There are things they will, especially the layer paints, will perform more poorly at. Like, it's harder to wet blend with them, and it's harder to do sort of loaded brush techniques and various things like that. But they're in no way like that bad. They're just generally you're just overpaying.
Yep. Pro Acryl.
But like, yeah, contrasts and their washes, yeah, here for it, right? Since it was mentioned, what is that? Is that Varnak, some Berserker Bloodshade I just happen to have right here at arm's reach because I'm using it in my scheme? I agree. Yeah, like that stuff's great. I really like it, and it's very useful. All right, there you go. Vallejo, fine. That's my answer, right? It's fine.
It's fine. I used it for years. I still occasionally, there's a handful of colors that I still kind of trot out, but it's fine.
It's fine. Doesn't have the pigment density of some of the newer paints. Doesn't, but like, it's fine. Now, I have not used the new refreshed version yet. I know they did just do a refresh with the new, the refreshed like game color. So maybe those are much better. I haven't gotten that line yet to check it out. If someone from Vallejo is watching this and you want to send me the full range, I'll be happy to give it a look. But I'm not like but otherwise I'm going to pick them up on my own time. So like, but Vallejo's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I'll give the new stuff the pace. But like I like Vallejo just fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Stephen Powell says I've heard good things about the new line of Vallejo. It's cool. Good. I'm glad to hear it. I mean, like, it seems like Mr. Morton says so Vallejo is okay for now as a beginner. Yeah, absolutely. Again, just like Tom and I said, used Vallejo for years. It was a absolutely like a mainstay of my painting rotation. There's nothing wrong with it. Mac N says old Citadel foundation paints. Yeah, no, that was a base. Now that was a base paint with some kick to it. That was so pigment rich and thick and creamy. Yeah, foundation paints were good. Some of the old Citadel paints from back in the day really did have unique properties that they haven't actually reconstituted since then, mostly because it was really expensive. So there you go.
Yep.
Then I've just got Tom the rest. So like, for example, scale 75, out the door. Goodbye. just out of here. Get them
Yeah,
gone.
I'm sad because I really initially like scale 75 because of the pigment density. But the reality is that it as a paint is fairly terrible. It just is.
Yep. It just is. It's hard to work with. It's sketchy. The gel medium's bad. Like it's just no. Just kick it to the curb. Like it's just bad.
It's
Um.
unfortunate because my favorite blue is in that line.
Oh, there you go.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know what blue you're referencing, but I don't have them anywhere around me anymore. That I like. I only kept a few of them, and
The
just I don't know why.
Canterbrick blue, so good.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
What about two thin coats? I haven't used any of it. Duncan, send me some paints, I guess, if you want me to review it, but I'm not going to go out of my way to get it. My understanding of it is it's basically just like it's actually made from the same stuff as the Citadel paints. So there you go. Does that apply for scale 75 artists? The stuff in the tubes? No, it doesn't. I'm talking about the regular scale 75 hobby and game line. No, that stuff's just heavy body acrylics. Like those are just heavy body acrylics. Nothing wrong with that. That I mean, like if you like heavy body acrylics, then you'll then go nuts, right? Things like there's other off sort of interesting brands, like people have been mentioning Golden So Flat. I agree. I like Golden So Flat a lot. Perfectly fine. It's an artist range, obviously not a hobby range, but it's perfectly good. No issue there. The problem with the scale is they're thin, they don't cover well, they're hard to work with, they don't blend well in a lot of ways, and like they're like I mean I know Scott's a fan of it, but like that's because Scott paints in a very particular style, and frankly he does way more work than he should. Like I've sat there and watched him paint. He's working so much harder than he should to get basic stuff out of them. One of my favorite paint ranges of all time sadly is not available anymore, which is Warcolors made a Nostalgia 88 line, which is meant to replicate the colors of the original Citadel paints. And I still have like two full ranges of it, and I love it so much. It's great. I can't use it in videos though, because I'll be like, here's this incredible paint set that's just like so good, but I don't think enough people bought it. That was the problem, so he had to retire it, and it's just nothing but a shame. Because they're so freaking good. Even their medals are good, actually. But I haven't really done much with the Nostalgia 93 line, but or yeah, I think it's 93. But I, if that's made in the same way, then I would certainly stand behind it. But I really haven't tried it yet. What else do we want to mention, Tom? What else is around? Oh, I tried those new Atom paints, the ones that were made specifically with, like these guys right here from Big Child, the Smart
How'd
paints.
that go?
Yeah, pretty good. I like them. They're good. It's a very limited range. This is the co-branded by Ammo and Big Child, and this was the ones with the Ruben Martinez designed the colors and everything there.
Yep.
And he's a very talented artist, obviously. It's not a huge range. It's only like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like 12 paints or something. Yeah, there you go. That would make sense. So it's all mixing, but they're pretty good. I really love the red. The red is fantastic. The red, the magenta, their yellow ochre, and the brown Earl. I actually really like their umber color. So, yep. So, Chimera. Yeah, I don't love it, honestly, is my answer. I don't love Chimera. It's fine. It's very uneven. Some of the paints have really bad finishes. Like the thickness is all over the shop on that. Like some of them are darn near liquid. Some of them are thick as a heavy body acrylic. The finishes on a lot of them are uneven, especially as they've expanded out into other lines. Like other non-single, their original stuff was like it's single pigments and you mix everything, and then they realized that's really hard to sell because most people don't want to mix, so they started doing mixtures. But like honestly, with a lot of that, I would just like, instead of the Chimera stuff, often I would just go buy something like a Golden So Flat or an artist range if that's what you want out of it, because then you know what's actually in the pigments. You can look at the back of the bottle and see like the exact pigments used and have maximum control over it, right? So yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's kind of my take. Like, Chimera's not bad. It's just there's a lot of bad paints within the range. It's not bad overall, but there's a lot of bad paints in the range. P3, I don't have a deep love for their existing range, but I know they're theoretically about to relaunch their paint range with like an upgraded version. So being that we're right on the border of that, I'm going to reserve my judgment. Like, you know, I'm sure I will give some a try relatively soon. And once I do and get a feel of them, obviously I don't like the pots thing, but I can put up with it. It's not like a huge deal breaker for me. So if they're good, then you know we'll see. We'll see how the new one's about to come out. Morden said, I love when you break down painting in a scientific way in your videos. Do you have a few books you'd recommend? Color theory, paint composition, etc. Yeah, sure. I mean, the easy answer is James Gurney's 2 book, which is Color and Light and Imaginative Realism. Those are like the 2 Bibles that you would start with. And then beyond that, Dave Taylor does a great series called The Art Of that he's done with various artists, and they kind of break down their theories and thoughts on stuff. So check it out. Okay. Anything else we want to argue here about paints? Any brand we didn't touch on, chat? Anything we didn't mention? By the way, if you haven't hit like yet or subscribed or do those things that make dings, go ahead and do that. It's super cool and we appreciate it. And thanks for everybody who super chatted so far. That's also really awesome of you. Tom, anything else we missed as far as paints go?
Nope. I'm boring. Everything is for me speed paints or a Pro.
Which is fine. Like, I want to point out, like, you know, I like a good speed paint, a good contrast paint. There you go. Like, go nuts. Enamels are a much bigger discussion there, Mac N. Birdman Reaper, no, sadly, that's gonna be a no for me. Reaper's paint is too pigment light. It's honestly not good, and it's very much showing its age. So there you go. Dougie Fresh, what about inks? Daler Rowney or Liquitex both make great inks. That's fine. So no issue there. And you're good to go. Let's see. Compressor versus CO2 and nitrogen for airbrushing. Never tried the other thing. I've only ever used a compressor, Lieutenant Dangle, so I can't talk about it. Did you talk about baseline watercolors, not the nostalgia range? Baseline is a little thin. I don't love them as much anymore. But the nostalgia ranges are good. So that's just a different composition. That's the one I like within their stuff. Let's see. Have I ever used colored metallics? When I didn't know what I was doing and thought it would look cool. It doesn't. Don't do colored metallics. That's my basic advice for you. Just don't. There you go. Simple piece of advice. No, inks are like, it's using a liquid pigment, Lofty Dog. So like look up Daler Rowney FW inks. That'll get you in the right place. Those were my go-to. Been trusted for years. But Liquitex inks are also fine if those are available in your area. So there you go. Yep. Current thoughts on metallics. The same as what I've always thought for now. Which is that Vallejo metal color is the only thing worth painting with, period. And all other metallics are at best meh. There are a couple that are like okay, and I wouldn't like absolutely throw in the trash immediately. They break down into 3 tiers. Vallejo metal color tier, which is only Vallejo metal color, which is S tier all the way. Then you have like It's Fine, which is like AK 3rd Gens metallics. So a couple of the new Pro Acryls, like the dark bronze and the Warcolors 88 metallics.
I like the Speed Painter.
Speed Paint 2.0 metallics. Those fit in that category. Yes, of like serviceable. They're good.
Yep.
The Speed Paint 2 metallics use real aluminum and use an alcohol mixture, which is good.
Like they're not, to be clear, they're not Vallejo metal color, but I will like there are some colors there that I prefer over the Vallejo metal color ranges.
Agreed. Especially when you're trying to get in golds. I use them a lot for golds and bronzes and stuff.
Yep.
So like
that's exactly
they're the acceptable tier, right? Yep. Like as in they're not trash, and then everything else is trash, just straight liquid garbage. There you go. Now that being said, I hopefully that'll change sometime soon. We'll see. We'll see what the world brings. Tomorrow's always a new day. Who knows? Okay. Oops, sorry. Secret tips. Secrets. All right, Tom, you ready for my secret tip section?
Yep.
Okay. This is my secret tips. I've got 3 secret tips for you here. I want to know if you have any secret tips of your own. Here we go. Number 1, you don't have to use all of the pieces. You can cut things off. You can not use things. Just don't.
Yep.
Just don't use them.
Yep.
It's great.
Yep. I don't know how many bojangles of like bags and daggers and weapons and all that have just never been glued on any of my models.
Correct. Best fluorescent is either the new Pro Acryl line or Golden High Flow, both of which are excellent. There you go. Sorry, that was somebody had a fluorescent question. Yeah, just don't do it. Like this thing, I did the Warp Blaster. It's supposed to have little guys on the side, Tom. Okay?
Yeah.
You know what I did? Chucked those. Those are gone. Ain't never going to be near this model. Forget that. I'm not painting 4 extra guys. Get out of here with that. Clip bits, bobs, bojangles, jingly bits. Don't put them on in the first place. Extra knives and grenades and nonsense. Nothing. Just cut out the noise.
That's basing material at best.
Exactly. You put them in a plastic container. Basing material. Done. Like, just, you don't need them. You don't.
Yep.
Like, holsters, nonsense. Just nonsense.
Hand axes.
Yep. Absolutely. Dead End says, all my IJ are missing the weird extra glue on bits. Mine too. Yep. Absolutely. I'm not painting all that garbage. Yeah. Like, forget that. It's nonsense. Just leave that crap off. Like I said, there's supposed to be 4 guys on the side of this thing. I sliced them off, did a little quick sprue goo over the connection joint so it was flat. Done. It drives itself around. He has a little car. I assume it moves on its own somehow. How? It's Skaven technology. If a Doom Wheel moves on its own, I understand there's rats inside. If the Screaming Bell moves on its own, that's like magic or whatever. This thing can too. Lieutenant Dangle says, I solely paint rectangles as my minis. There we go. That's the right way to go. Just blocks. But yeah, like, you don't need all these details. You don't need all the pieces. Leave crap off. Who cares? It's fine.
Yep. No one will say anything.
Yeah. No one will even notice, usually. It's almost impossible. I have never once judged an army. Never once. And I've judged a lot of armies. Okay. At the largest tournaments in the country. And I've never once thought to myself, oh, they left that bit off. Couldn't care. Right? Could not care. It's irrelevant. Leave crap off that doesn't need to be there. Cut crap off that shouldn't be there. Done.
Yep.
WG Phil, best ways to make or buy a test swatch for paints. I don't know, honestly. I'm not sure. I mean, War Colors makes these which are like white and black and meant to be test swatches. You can there are generic stuff like this you can just print out and try with. Test the coverage of your paint over white and black. So you could do something like that. Like, you could just use the War Colors ones. I think they have those available. So you can buy a big pack of them, I think. Okay. Number 2. You don't have to paint all of the pieces. Here we go, Tom. This is going to be the one that I think is sacrilege. But, like, some things can just be part of the greater scheme's color. So what I mean by this is, like, let's say you got a Space Marine or something like that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And he does have some bits and bobs on that armor. Those things can just be that color. Right? Like, let's say there's some vents or whatever. You know, things. Bejangles. Stuff that's implanted in the armor or whatever. Right? Filigree. Other things. They can just, like, be that same color. It's fine.
Yeah. It just blends right in.
Yep.
It's so funny. Like my son was working on his iron jaws, and he was like, "Is this a different color metal?" It's like it's not today.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's not today.
And he was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah. If you want to go back and like break that up with a different color, great. You can do that later, but not right now. How about you just finish that first test model?" And he was like, "Really? Yeah, go do that."
I'm
He was
free.
so
I'm
happy.
free, baby. There ain't no strings on me.
So
That's right.
happy. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like, go nuts. Like, just, I see people going nuts and picking out, like, every little tiny detail on everything, and I'm like, stop it. You don't have to do that. Just those vents and those things and those circles and those tubes and those spikes,
It's all the
they're
same
all
color.
also red. Just like the armor. Fine. Right? Go
Yep.
nuts.
Yep.
Okay. So there you go. Yeah, Two Cart says in universe they would probably paint over those nuts and bolts and things like that as well. Like, because they would probably have the thing nearly finished and just be like using an industrial airbrush, like spray gun, to just like, psh,
Yeah.
psh, psh. Like if you look at tanks, like,
Unless you're KO. KO
sure,
use actual paintbrushes because the guy that
is
is
actually
hanging off on
painting
the
the thing.
side
Yes,
has a paintbrush. Yes.
yes.
They're the only
Um,
ones that actually use
but like
paintbrushes.
if you look at tanks that are in war, like all the stuff on the tank is basically green,
Yep.
right? Because they just just like
Yep.
spray the whole thing, right? All
Yep.
right. Stephen Powell says I'm painting 90% or more of my Space Marines right now in one blend. Everything except the details I care about done in 30 minutes. There you go. Absolutely.
Yep.
Huey says I just painted 30 plus Zangors. I needed to hear that a month ago. Boy, if there was ever an example of a thing where it could just be like all the little hair pieces or whatever, yeah, it's all the same. Just like stop it or whatever. Right?
Yep. 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 Yep.
Right. Okay. Then finally, here's some people had mentioned this earlier. Here's mine: mixed mediums. Use other things besides acrylic paint, oils, oil washes, micron pens, or like metal paint
Man,
pens,
I
right?
can't. I
Pigment,
can't.
all this stuff.
I can't encourage people to do oil washes enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is such a game changer if you've never done an oil wash on something, especially like on a metal. Ooh, ooh. There's nothing that looks better than an oil wash on like a KO ship. You get all the nice dark deep lines
Yep.
and everything looks great.
You
Like
mix it
you
thicker than
don't
you think. Like that's what I'll say. It doesn't need to be hyper thin. Remember, you can always just wipe it up. As long as it's not going
yeah.
over something light colored, like a light matte acrylic paint. If you gloss
Yep.
varnish it first, then it'll wipe off.
Yep. Yep. Works great. Get a shirt, old shirt, wipe it down. It's great. Done.
Exactly. Yeah, like
Done.
I didn't mention streaking grime here because I mentioned it on the previous thing, but again, that would fall under this mixed medium thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
Lieutenant Dangle says I started using my Gundam metal pins on minis and it's helped a lot. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Is Noosh a good oil wash alternative? Yes, 100%. If you want to stick in the acrylic space, something like Noosh from Pro Acryl. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Doing like stone and all that, grab some pigments after you've done some like diversifying your colors, slap pigment all over the place. It'll be great. It'll look fantastic.
Yeah. Get them dirty. Get the lower parts, like the lower parts, their legs, just blue or whatever. But then you got that red pigment in there. Boom. Done. Instant done. Didn't even worry about the bottom half of the model. We got it done with the pigment. How much do you follow the gun plus space? Not much, Mac N is really the answer. Like I watch it from afar at best.
Mhm.
But like there's a lot of techniques and tricks that those painters use that we can absolutely translate over to our hobby. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, like those kinds of things, like go for it. Why are you trying to like you're trying to do some freehand or some writing on something? Now just get out the micron pen, right? Get out the metal pen to do that edge. Whatever. Like there's lots of options, right? To me, a panel liner, another great example. Thank you, Harold Manway. Absolutely, like 100%. The panel liner is another. If you don't want to mix your own oil wash, get out that to me a panel liner. Go to town. Done and dusted, right? Like 100%. Do not confine yourself. Do not chain yourself to only acrylic stuff. Now, some of these require different solvents. Obviously, with oils and oil washes, you've got to have white spirits. That's those kinds of things. and that's fine. There's a cost.
Sure.
I don't want to pretend like it's not. All right, like you do have to that is like something.
Yep.
Can you elaborate on the uses of a micron pen? Like when would you use it? Sure, sure, absolutely, Huey.
Books.
What's that? Books, text,
Books and
writing on
scrolls.
things,
Yep.
scrolls. How about this, Tom? How about you want a black line in some spaces, in between some elements? Yeah, you can use a thin micron pen for that. Go ahead, go nuts. Yep. Absolutely.
Banners. You know, do
Banners.
some drawing.
Yep, all that stuff. You will want to varnish after with an airbrush because those things will reactivate if you paint over the top of them at all. So do it either as your last step or varnish over it before you do any other steps. But yeah, 100%. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are my secret tips. Tom, is there anything I missed in the secret tips area?
No, I do the same thing. Like those are all in my rotations of of that. I mean, at the end of the so one of the things I do for Zenithal, by the way, there's one step that I do in between Zenithal and actually starting to paint, and this seems like a weird one, but like oftentimes my Zenithal is like a gray.
Sure.
Like it's like a real light gray.
As it just will be because building up, it takes like a lot of buildup of white to get to any kind of opacity. Yeah.
Yep. And but my step before I start painting is actually dry brush everything in an ivory.
Oh sure, yeah, absolutely. Helps pick out the
So
edges. Yeah, 100%.
After I've done my Zenithal, right, my spray, I'll do an ivory dry brush on everything before I start laying down paint.
Yep.
And like that extra small step is fantastic. No, that extra small step.
You gotta go. You gotta be quicker with it.
Yep. That extra small step is like it makes such a big difference when you're doing like a slap chop of that extra like little bit of ivory to pick out all the edges. Yeah.
No, Huey, that's a good point. Let me talk about that for a second, which is like focus on the things that matter, right? So the face, like the classic thing was faces, bases, weapons, and shields, right?
Yeah.
Because that was the most of the figure you can actually see. But yes, like focusing your time on the right things. That's what I'm saying when you don't have to paint all the pieces. Like focus in on the stuff that matters. Focus on the face. Focus on the weapons. Focus on whatever the central point of the model you're looking at is, right? Like what's the generally it's the bust area, by the by. Like imagine if the figure was a bust, that's the sort of core area of the model you generally want to focus on, plus weapons and shields. So yeah, no, it's a great point. Somebody, Lofty Dog asked, what about subassembly? I can never decide if I should add shields before painting. Yeah, it's a great question. So it kind of depends on where you're going. If you're just really trying to get done, assemble the whole stupid model. If it's like, if it's really hidden, if they're like holding their shields to their chests, who cares? Don't paint behind there.
No one will ever see it.
No one will ever see it. If you can't get a paintbrush in there, then no one's going to see it. Okay?
Yep.
That's the rule. Now, if it's like they have shields but they hold them away from their body, but it's kind of annoying, and you're trying to do like a relatively nice job, and that fits within, according to rule number 1 back on the first slide, and it fits within your tolerance level. Yeah, I like the 2 sub-assemblies I will frequently do is 1, leaving shields separate from the model, but not always. Again, like not always. Many times I have assembled them on there. Some hold them way out. If they're like got them way out on their arms, if they're kind of in this pose, like out more, then that shield's on, baby. So that's 1. 2 is rider from horse. If you can separate rider from horse, I will oftentimes leave those 2 apart because that can just be like that will make your life a lot easier. Okay. Layering and edge work with a brush. What size brush and what angle do you hold it? This is the hill I'm trying to climb at the moment. It's frustrating. My answer there, Morton, is like I've got some videos on edge highlighting. I would recommend to point you toward that stuff. It's a little more complicated of a question, but short answer is you want a relatively long bellied but sharp brush, usually on the smaller side, size 0 or 1, but no smaller than that. And you want to hold it in an angle where hopefully you're using the side of the brush to just scrape the edge. And you come at it like this, where you're not touching it, and then you just lightly get on it. So, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, you shouldn't be dragging.
That's right. Yeah. You're just trying to like lightly scrape across. remove the model.
Yeah.
Yes. Like again, it like a 0 is usually my go-to for edge highlighting, to be honest. Okay. Oh, I love that tip, Lieutenant Dangle. Don't worry about making everyone's skin color the same. Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, there would be lots of variation in the skin tone of most forces. So, yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's all good, Morton. You're good. You're good. All right. Tom, I got one last thing I want to talk on. This is a bit of opining more than anything. Okay?
Okay.
So, like, the last thing that I wanted to talk about here was I saw some people, or people have asked me, like, what do I do if my goal is to, like, really, really improve? Like, I want to win Best Army or something like that, right? Like, I want to improve my painting. Then you're going to need to, as you're working through your armies, if army painting is what you're doing and you want to improve, then you need to pick one thing on each army or even set of models you're working on. Yes, those are absolutely macaroons, and my display board here is a cake that I then cut up and fed to people after painting it. The answer is you pick one thing per unit, per model, per whatever that you're trying to improve. In this project, I want to improve my skin tones. In this project, I want to improve how my metals look. In this project, I want to improve my contrast. In this project, I want to improve my bases, my whatever, how my hair looks, or how my weapons are painted, or whatever. And you use your army projects to build that repertoire of pushing yourself, because if you're like focused on skin tones over a whole army that has a lot of skin, like don't pick that on a Space Marine army. You're not going to get a lot of work in, right?
Yep.
You will improve. Like if you do the thing 100 times and you focus on it, you will improve. Now, in that event, the final units of your army might end up looking quite a bit better than the first units of your army, and like that's okay. Who gives a crap? Like, if you paint in that style, you should be focusing on the biggest, most impressive characters last, so that they'll benefit the most. And generally, that's what the judges are going to look at the most heavily as well. Centerpieces are expected to be painted to a higher level than bulk troops. Okay. So like you use the project as a way to do focused improvement, right? Like targeted practice. And by working your way through units, models, where you're focusing in on individual elements, not everything. Don't pick multiple. Don't be like, well, this model I'm going to improve skin and metal and hair and this. Nope, stop. You just broke down. You're not going to finish your army. Okay? Like you're trying to do too much at once. You need to take these things in turn and do targeted practices on them as you go, right? And over time, you will build up a full toolbox that will let you get there. Like the reality is, if you're a very new painter, there is no amount of time you can spend on an army to win Best Painted at a significant event. It doesn't exist. Because you do not have the skills. Like, you just don't. You do not have the knowledge. You do not have the skills to actually get to that thing at a significant event where there's lots of armies present. You might be able to do it at like your local store or whatever. You're talking like a 16-person event or something. But like right now, if I tried to build a rocket ship to get me to the moon, there is no way I could get there. It wouldn't matter how much time you give me to build that rocket ship. It ain't going to the moon. Okay? Yep. And like, it's the exact same story, right? Yes, it is cake in Slanesh. That was the whole idea. Yeah, exactly. That was the whole point. It was excess, and it was rich. It's red velvet cake as well, Cynix, that I cut up and gave to people. I tempted them with my display board. At any rate, like you have to build up the knowledge, the set of skills, and then once you're there, that's when you can start saying, like, you have to get to a certain point, right, where you actually like understand the skills, and then once you're at that point, then you can actually put those things into practice and spend the extra time and go after like Best Painted at events or something like that. And I wouldn't expect to roll into my first event and win first place, right? You don't know who's there. Like if you roll up to an event and Kit is there, Bleep Bloop is there or something with his army, it's like, well, I'm sorry about your loss, because like you're not beating his army. That dude spent years painting and practicing and has one of the 3 best armies in the country. But you can make it to finalists and stuff like that and improve and improve and improve. But you have to get to like a certain baseline level of knowledge first. And that shouldn't be like your goal at the beginning should be to learn and complete your foundation of skills. Then, once you've got all those tools in the toolbox, right, then you try to build something significant, right? When all you've got's a hammer, you can't build a really impressive like dinette set. You need some more tools, right?
Yep.
Does that make Tom? What do you think about that? Does that work? And I mean, like, I'm not trying to kill anybody's inspiration. I'm just trying to like be.
You just
real
need to
with
accept.
that.
Yep, you need to accept the situation and where things are at. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I will say, and this leads into a question, Toonspiracy said, what armies would you suggest for painting, playing for new players? Great question. Because your army choice can factor into your skill level. That is what I mean by that is like some armies are easier to make look better than others. Okay? So like ogres, Ironjaws, who else falls in this category? Sons of Behemoth. A lot of destruction armies, ironically. Some Tzeentch stuff. Not the Zangor side. But like the bubblegum poppy demon side, right?
Yep.
That kind of stuff is all like, it doesn't take incredible skills to make that stuff look good. You can do a lot of work with like the airbrush. You can do a lot of that sort of thing. And you can get impressive looking armies early on because they're bigger. They have larger surfaces to work with that are more mono textured. That is to say they're the same thing. Like you're dealing with like, he's all made of bubblegum or whatever, like the little pink horrors or whatever. Nighthaunt is another good one.
Pretty quick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nighthaunt, Stephen Powell and Pat Noon. Yeah. Like those are forces where it is easier to work with. Nurgle Varnak, thank you. That's another one because you can be gross and use a lot of like rust and grime and verdigris, and you can get out that gore and snot or dirty down products, right? Like I said, links down below. And you can do that stuff and it will look awesome, right? And it's like the skill floor is a lot lower, right?
Yep.
But like some armies, the new Cities of Sigmar, S2D, like Slaves to Darkness, right? Slaanesh. I'm trying to think of what else. Like even honestly Skaven to some degree, that like certainly, right? A lot of those armies are just like they're harder. They're just a lot harder. Because you're dealing with a lot of different materials, a lot of different like smaller details and so on and so forth. Yeah, definitely not Chaos Space Marines. Absolutely not. Like Firstborn, original 30K, Heresy era Mark 6 Marines. Thumbs up. You can kill it on those guys. Yeah, not Lumineth. That's for sure. Definitely not Lumineth. Oh, they are a nightmare. Yeah. Yeah. What? Anything else on that one, Tom, for like the starting stuff?
No, I think that sounds about right.
Okay. Yeah, Stormcast are probably somewhere in the middle. It depends. Like some units, yes. Some units, no.
Yeah. Like
a lot of those new Ruination Chamber guys and the characters and stuff like that are like really complicated. Yep. So they're kind of middle ground. Yep. Yeah, Stephen Powell, like Mark 6 Marines are easy. They're so easy. Like they're great. I did a whole army of those real fast, and I still think it looks pretty darn good. Okay. Anyways, that's everything kind of hobby related. So there you go. Tom, any final thoughts before we call it a night here?
There are lots of tools out there. We've given you some of our tips and tricks, but there are lots of tools out there. There are lots of hobby channels, this one included, right? Where there is additional advice that you can find. I
agree. Yep. But if for some reason we didn't answer your question or we missed something or you've got an additional question, drop it down in the comments below. I will certainly be answering it. Don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, do all those things that make Dings be cooler. Your friends will think you're probably much cooler if you do that. Human Nut says the detail puke on modern models is a bit overwhelming. How would you suggest posting fiddly bits? Cut a bunch of those fiddly bits off, and then cut some off, ignore what you can, and then keep the rest simple, like a dry brush, like Tom said, and a simple contrast over the top, and you're good to go. Okay.
Yep.
And yes, be watching videos 10 to 20% of the time and painting the other 80% of the time, unless it's on while you're painting. But thank you all. Don't forget to hit all the. Remember, you can find everything we talked about today down in the links below. Check out all that stuff, including the new links for the Dirty Down stuff, as I mentioned, as well as like the Game Envy light and wet palette and all that's down below. I hope this was all helpful. I love doing a hobby show. My hobby mojo is like at the highest it's ever been after coming back from Nova. I am super jazzed. I hope you are too. But I hope this all helps. Like I said, drop your questions if you've got them. Other ways you can support the show are down there. There's our Patreon if you're really focused on taking your hobby to the next level. And of course, there's also Uncle Adam and I's books down there. If you maybe want a new game, a new obsession, a new skirmish game to play, to have an excuse to paint up some new models. So there you go. Yes, there was no dogs today. And do any tips for pet hair? Pfft, I got none. Pet hairs are on every single thing I paint, and I just accept it. Yes, here's my tip. Zen-like acceptance. There you go. God granted me the wisdom to change what I could and accept what I could not. So thank you everybody very much for watching. We really appreciate it. As always, we'll see you next Wednesday.